Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. This is part 1 of our story. If you like this what if story and want to see part 2, let me know in the comments below. Before we start, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this video with your friends. Also, check the description for more great content and my playlist. This story was posted by Top 5 on Wattpad. Now let's start. Doctor informed Ms. Midoriya that her son was quirkless. That sentence marked the beginning of a difficult journey for Izuku. Inko, feeling the weight of the news, thanked the doctor and took Izuku's hand as they left the hospital. The car ride home was filled with silence, broken only by Izuku's quiet sobs. Inko thought to herself, struggling to accept the reality of having a quirkless child, her grip tightening on the steering wheel. Izuku hesitantly asked if he could still be a hero, but Inko's response was harsh. She told him to be quiet, expressing her frustration with his dreams. Izuku, taken aback by her words, felt a deep hurt but remained silent, forcing himself to stop crying as they drove home. Years passed, and now Izuku was preparing for school. He went downstairs to find Inko watching television. When she noticed him, irritation crossed her face. She ordered him to clean the house when he returned from school. As he left, he overheard her say that she should have aborted him. A sharp pain pierced his heart, and tears welled up in his eyes as he left the house, feeling guilty for not being born with a quirk. At school, the teacher announced that they would be writing down their aspirations. While the class groaned, Bakugo and Izuku remained silent. The teacher playfully threw the forms in the air, and the class cheered, using their quirks, except for Izuku and Bakugo. As the teacher read through the forms, he called out Bakugo's name. Bakugo declared that to become the #1 hero, he needed to attend the top hero school. Bakugo's confidence was palpable as he boasted about his strength, dismissing his classmates as extras. Tension filled the room when Bakugo confronted Izuku, questioning his longing to be a hero without a quirk. Izuku, feeling small, admitted he didn't know but hoped to follow in Bakugo's footsteps. Bakugo, furious, threatened Izuku, lifting him off the ground and warning him not to apply to UA. The teacher intervened, warning Bakugo about the consequences of his actions. Class continued, but Izuku struggled to focus, feeling exhausted and in pain. As class ended, Izuku packed his things, but Bakugo snatched his hero notebook. When Izuku pleaded for it back, Bakugo destroyed it and threw it out the window. Izuku reached for it, but Bakugo pushed him down. Bakugo warned Izuku that if he ever saw him at UA, he would make his life miserable. After the confrontation, Izuku sat on the floor, feeling defeated. Bakugo's words echoed in his mind, and he felt a strange numbness wash over him. He stood up and left the classroom without his bag, noticing his notebook floating in a nearby puddle. As he wandered the streets aimlessly, he thought about not returning home, feeling that his absence wouldn't matter to Inko. Under a small bridge, he contemplated Bakugo's words about his next life. Suddenly, a sludge villain emerged from a sewer, looking for a place to hide. The villain, spotting Izuku, approached him with a sinister intent. Surprisingly, Izuku agreed to help, feeling that this was a way to be useful. The sludge villain, taken aback by Izuku's acceptance, offered him a chance to escape instead. Izuku, feeling lost and despondent, accepted the offer, and the villain carried him away. Meanwhile, a muscular hero named All Might searched for the escaped villain but ultimately lost track of him. On a rooftop, the sludge villain and Izuku shared a moment of understanding. The villain revealed that he, too, had faced rejection because of his quirk. Izuku listened, feeling a sense of camaraderie in their shared struggles. The villain encouraged Izuku not to lose hope, reminding him that he was not alone in his fight against the world's judgments. They don't know the hardships of being like them. Izuku thought about the sludge villain's words, reflecting on the unexpected support he received. The sludge villain reminded him that he was not alone, and Izuku found it amusing that a villain was offering him comfort. They sat together, watching the sunset, until the sludge villain mentioned it was time to leave, fearing the heroes would find him. Izuku felt a pang of uncertainty as he asked if they would meet again, to which the sludge villain replied that perhaps fate would bring them together once more. As the sludge villain departed, Izuku pondered his next move, feeling lost and reluctant to return home. Suddenly, a red portal opened behind him, drawing his attention. A figure emerged, holding a demon's head in one hand and a shotgun in the other. Vega, the AI, expressed concern about their location, while Doomslayer, the imposing figure, acknowledged the malfunction in Vega's systems. He sat down, grimacing in pain, and Vega urged him to rest, but Doomslayer refused, determined to eliminate all demons. Izuku watched the exchange, gathering the courage to speak up. When he introduced himself, Doomslayer reacted with suspicion, aiming his shotgun at him. Izuku raised his hands in surrender, explaining his longing to help after overhearing their conversation. Doomslayer initially dismissed him due to his age, but Izuku insisted on being useful. After a moment of contemplation, Doomslayer remembered Vega's advice about needing assistance in the future and reluctantly agreed to train Izuku, warning him that it would be tough and dangerous. Izuku accepted the challenge, eager to prove himself. Vega confirmed that the portal was ready, and Doomslayer led Izuku through it, marking the beginning of Izuku's transformation into a formidable warrior. 4 months, Izuku trained relentlessly under Doomslayer's guidance, facing perilous challenges and growing stronger. They developed a bond akin to family, with Doomslayer viewing Izuku as a son and Izuku seeing Doomslayer as the father he never had. Their partnership continued until one day, Doomslayer informed Izuku that Vega had detected demons hiding on Earth. This would be Izuku's first solo mission, and although he felt ready, Doomslayer reminded him to exercise caution. Izuku reassured him, expressing his determination to succeed. As they shared a heartfelt moment, Doomslayer encouraged him to distinguish between true heroes and imposters, emphasizing the importance of protecting those who genuinely cared. With one last embrace, Izuku stepped through the portal, ready to face the challenges ahead. Meanwhile, 2 pro-heroes patrolled the streets, discussing the unusual calm in villain activity since All Might's retirement. They were interrupted by a scream from an alleyway, prompting them to investigate. Upon arrival, they found a man in armor holding a little girl and confronting a villain. As the situation escalated, the armored man demonstrated his strength and determination, leading to a chaotic confrontation with the heroes. The scene unfolded with tension as the heroes attempted to subdue the armored figure, who remained unfazed by their efforts. The battle intensified, highlighting the challenges that lay ahead for Izuku and the heroes as they navigated a world filled with danger and uncertainty. What should she do? Ryukyu felt paralyzed with fear as the man approached her. She thought to herself that the best option was to hold out until Miriko arrived. Gathering her courage, she dashed at him again and threw another punch. The man caught her fist, and she struggled to break free. She pleaded for him to let her go, but her efforts were in vain. Closing her eyes, she braced herself for an attack, but nothing happened. Instead, the man pushed her down to the floor, and a portal opened behind him. Confused, Ryukyu watched as he stepped through the portal, giving her one last look before disappearing. The portal closed, leaving her on the floor, stunned by the encounter. She wondered why he hadn't harmed her. Getting up, she helped Miriko out of the dumpster. Miriko asked if she had caught him, but Ryukyu admitted he had gotten away. Frustrated, Miriko kicked a nearby can. Ryukyu sat against the wall, trying to process everything. Miriko sighed and joined her on the floor, checking if she was okay. Ryukyu responded that she thought she was fine. Miriko suggested they take Overhaul, who was knocked out on the floor, to a hospital. Ryukyu agreed, and they worked together to lift him, with Miriko grabbing his legs while Ryukyu took his arms. They left the scene with Overhaul in tow. Meanwhile, Izuku emerged from a portal, carrying a small girl in his arms. He entered a living room and gently laid her on the couch. After removing his helmet, he sat in a chair, pondering what to do next. He eventually stood up and headed to his room. Upon entering, he approached his closet and opened it, moving clothes aside to reveal a small screen with a handprint. After removing his gauntlet, he pressed his hand against the screen, gaining access. The closet wall slid open, revealing a secret room filled with weapons and an empty area that had an outline of his armor. He carefully placed his armor on the wall before leaving the secret room and closing it behind him. Sitting on his bed, he buried his face in his hands, reflecting on the girl's suffering. In a flashback, Izuku walked through the streets in his armor, feeling the weight of curious stares. Annoyed, he glanced at the onlookers, causing them to quickly avert their eyes. Suddenly, he felt a small bump against his leg and looked down to see a girl with long white hair and a small horn on her forehead. Crouching down, he helped her up. She apologized, trembling with fear. Overhaul, appearing suddenly, claimed responsibility for her clumsiness and attempted to take her away. Izuku noticed the girl's fear and tears, prompting him to protect her. She pleaded with him not to let Overhaul take her, and despite her fears, Izuku assured her he would keep her safe. As Overhaul reached for the girl, Izuku intervened, grabbing his arm. Overhaul shouted in anger, pulling away and threatening her. He removed his glove, preparing to unleash his power. Eri gasped and let go of Izuku, about to run to Overhaul, but he stopped her. She begged him to let her go, fearing for his safety. Ignoring her pleas, Izuku picked her up, whispering that he would protect her. She looked up at him, comforted by his deep yet soothing voice, and closed her eyes, resting her head against him. Overhaul, furious, unleashed concrete spikes toward Izuku, but he shielded Eri with his back. The spikes shattered against his armor as he advanced toward Overhaul. The villain, realizing his attacks were futile, fled into an alleyway with Izuku in pursuit. In the alley, Izuku scanned his surroundings, but as he turned, Overhaul lunged at him. Izuku swiftly drew a blade from his gauntlet, cutting Overhaul's hand off. Overhaul fell to his knees, screaming in pain. Izuku retracted the blade and pulled out his shotgun, aiming it at Overhaul, who was desperate and threatened him to stay away. Just as Izuku was about to pull the trigger, Miriko intervened, commanding him to hold his fire. Back in the present, Izuku recalled Miriko's name and questioned why she had called him a villain. He remembered the scene with Overhaul, realizing the gravity of the situation. Rising from his bed, he grabbed a blanket and returned to the living room, covering Eri with it. He noted her bravery despite her fear and reflected on Miriko's selflessness during their encounter. Maybe those two are different. He thinks to himself as he stands up and begins to leave, but Eri grabs his hand, stopping him in his tracks. Eri, still asleep, seems to be having a nightmare. He lets out a sigh and picks Eri up, laying down on the couch. He places her on his chest and covers them both with a blanket. Eri then calms down, snuggling her head against his chest. He gently places his arm over her, and she smiles in her sleep. This feels nice, he thinks, as he begins to drift off to sleep with her in his arms. The chapter opens with Izuku and Eri peacefully sleeping. Eri slowly begins to wake up and once she does, she looks around, realizing she is in the living room. She glances down and sees that she is sleeping on Izuku. She starts to shake him gently, trying to wake him up. She pleads for him to wake up, her voice trembling. Tears begin to form in her eyes as she fears he might not be alive. Her tears fall onto Izuku's face, stirring him from his slumber. He blinks awake and sees Eri crying as she shakes him. As Eri notices that he is awake, she calms down, exclaiming in relief that he is okay and hugs him tightly. Izuku is taken aback by the warmth of her embrace, a feeling he hasn't experienced in a long time. It fills him with happiness. He wraps his arm around Eri, returning the hug. In that moment, Eri feels something she had long forgotten, a warmth in her heart. Izuku's hug reminds her of what it feels like to be loved, and she smiles through her tears of joy. She calls him Papa, and Izuku is momentarily shocked by her words. Did she really call him that? He looks down at her, seeking confirmation. Eri realizes what she has said and looks up at him, panic rising in her voice as she apologizes, fearing he might hurt her. He reassures her, confused by her fear, asking why he would ever hurt her. Eri explains that others had always hurt her, laughing as they did so. Izuku's heart aches at her words, anger bubbling within him at the thought of anyone causing her pain for their amusement. I'll find them and make their deaths slow and painful, like they deserve. Izuku thought about his promise to protect Eri. He would never hurt her. Eri looked up at him, her eyes filled with uncertainty, and asked if he would keep his promise. Izuku lifted his hand and extended his pinky, initiating a pinky promise. Eri hesitantly mirrored his actions, wrapping her pinky around his. She asked what it meant, and he explained that it was a promise stronger than any other. Eri smiled, and that smile warmed Izuku's heart. Suddenly, Izuku heard Eri's stomach rumble. He asked if she was hungry, and she nodded shyly, holding her stomach. They both made their way to the kitchen, where Izuku thought about his limited cooking skills. He picked Eri up and placed her in a chair, then gathered a bowl, milk and cereal. He poured the cereal first and added milk last before handing it to her. He apologized for not knowing how to cook, but Eri reassured him that it was okay. She took a bite and enjoyed it, while Izuku watched her with a smile. As Eri devoured her cereal, Izuku reminded her to slow down, not wanting her to choke. She mumbled an apology with her mouth full, and he reassured her that it was fine. He just wanted her to be safe. Once Eri finished, Izuku took her bowl to the sink and asked if she knew where her parents were. Eri's expression changed, and she revealed that they weren't around anymore. Noticing her distress, Izuku crouched down and hugged her, telling her it was okay and that she didn't have to explain further. Eri snuggled into his shoulder, and Izuku decided she needed a bath. He asked if it was all right to give her one, and she nodded. After placing her on the couch, he went to the bathroom. While he was gone, Eri spotted something on the floor, a framed picture of Izuku with a tall, muscular man. When Izuku returned and saw her holding the picture, he asked what she had found. Eri showed him the picture and asked who it was. Izuku explained that the man was special to him, like a father. Eri smiled and said that if he was special to Izuku, then that made Izuku special to her too. She expressed that he made her feel safe and happy, referring to him as her papa. Izuku was taken aback but accepted her words, feeling a warmth in his heart. He gently took the photo from her and placed it on the counter before leading her to the bathroom for her bath. After the bath, Izuku wrapped Eri in a towel and took her to his room, where he searched for clothes that would fit her. Finding nothing suitable, he decided to give her one of his oversized shirts. Eri happily declared that it was comfy, and Izuku thought about how he needed to buy her some proper clothes but couldn't leave her alone. He carried Eri to the living room and turned on the TV, which displayed SpongeBob. Eri was instantly captivated, and as she watched, Izuku took the opportunity to grab a device from his room. He activated it, and a screen appeared, connecting him to his father figure, Doomguy. Izuku explained that he had found a little girl who had been captured by a villain. Doomguy asked if he had dealt with the villain, and Izuku replied that he had restrained him but had not killed him. Izuku shared that he wanted to take care of Eri but needed to go shopping for clothes. Doomguy agreed to watch over her while he was gone. After thanking him, Izuku returned to the living room, where he found Eri singing along to the SpongeBob theme song. He joined her on the couch, and they continued watching cartoons together. Later, Izuku heard a knock at the door and told Eri he would be right back. He opened the door to find Doomguy standing there, and they shared a hug. As they entered the living room, Eri noticed Izuku's dad and greeted him nervously. Doomguy reassured her that he meant no harm. Eri recognized him from the picture and asked if he was her grandpa, to which Doomguy responded that he supposed he was. Izuku explained that Doomguy would watch over her while he went shopping for clothes. Eri hugged Izuku tightly, and he promised to return quickly before leaving. Doomguy then asked Eri what she wanted to do while waiting, and she excitedly shouted, "SpongeBob," as she ran to the couch to switch the channel. Meanwhile, Izuku was in a clothing store, gathering items for Eri. After selecting everything she needed, he approached the cashier, who was intimidated by his height and muscular build. He paid for the clothes and left the store, feeling satisfied. As he walked back, he passed an alleyway and noticed a man holding a girl down. The girl was struggling and pleading for him to let her go. Izuku's instincts kicked in, and he intervened, swiftly lifting the criminal off the girl with one arm while holding the bag of clothes in the other. The girl looked up in surprise, and Izuku prepared to ensure her safety. Izuku remained unfazed as he held the criminal by the neck. With a swift motion, he slammed the criminal to the ground, causing the earth to crack slightly beneath them. The criminal gasped for breath, struggling to regain his footing. Izuku approached him and delivered a decisive kick to his head, rendering him unconscious. A girl sat on the ground, observing the scene unfold. Izuku walked over to her and extended his hand. She closed her eyes, bracing for what she thought might come next. Izuku asked if she was okay. Confused, she opened her eyes and saw him offering his hand. Hesitant at first, she accepted it, and he helped her to her feet. She expressed her gratitude, stammering out a thank you. Izuku simply nodded in acknowledgement. Curious, she asked for his name, to which he replied, Izuku. The girl introduced herself as 𝐒𝐮𝐦𝐸𝐵, pleased to meet him. Noticing his quiet demeanor, she remarked that he didn't seem to talk much. Izuku nodded in agreement. Jiraiya suggested they should take the criminal to the police. Izuku agreed and walked over to the unconscious man, lifting him onto his shoulder. Together, Izuku and Jiraiya made their way to the police station, where they turned in the criminal. After leaving the station, they walked side by side. Jiraiya, curious, asked Izuku how old he was. He looked at her with a puzzled expression, prompting her to clarify her question. When he finally answered that he was 16, Jiraiya was taken aback, exclaiming in surprise. Izuku looked towards Jiraiya, his eyes slightly widened. Jiraiya, feeling a bit flustered, expressed her surprise at his height and muscular build, trailing off as she inspected him. She then remarked on his handsomeness, causing Izuku to blush. Realizing what she had said, Jiraiya quickly apologized, stammering that she didn't mean to say it, though she did. She tried to think of an excuse but ended up covering her face with her hands, blushing even more. Izuku, still flustered by the compliment, reassured her that it was okay. They both stood there, blushing. Jiraiya hesitantly asked if she could get his number, looking down shyly. Izuku could only manage a soft agreement, too flustered to say much. After exchanging phone numbers, they began to say their goodbyes. Jiraiya said she would see him around, and Izuku nodded in response. As Jiraiya waved goodbye, she turned to leave but suddenly ran towards him. Izuku heard footsteps approaching and turned around just in time to feel a quick kiss on his cheek from Jiraiya. She shouted a cheerful goodbye as she dashed off, her cheeks flushed. Izuku stood there, processing what had just happened. Once he realized the significance of the moment, he blushed deeply and looked down, thinking to himself how incredible it was to have been kissed by a girl. He turned around and walked home, holding his cheek and smiling softly. Upon arriving home, Izuku opened the door to find Eri and 𝐻𝐻𝐸𝐵 singing the theme song from SpongeBob. He stood there, surprised to see 𝐻𝐻𝐸𝐵 joining in. Once they finished, Izuku made his presence known, and Eri jumped off the couch to hug his legs, excitedly greeting him. 𝐻𝐻𝐸𝐵 asked how much Izuku had seen, to which Izuku replied that he had seen everything. 𝐻𝐻𝐸𝐵 defended himself, saying the song was catchy. As Izuku placed a bag of clothes on the table, 𝐻𝐻𝐸𝐵 mentioned he had to leave but promised to visit them from time to time. Eri hugged 𝐻𝐻𝐸𝐵 goodbye, calling him grandpa, while Izuku said he would see him later. As 𝐻𝐻𝐸𝐵 left, he reflected on how long it had been since he felt close to someone other than Izuku, marveling at how Eri could bring happiness with just her smile. Izuku then turned to Eri, revealing he had brought her some clothes. Eri's eyes lit up as she admired the comfortable-looking outfit. He suggested they get her changed, and they walked into his room together. After a brief moment, Eri finished changing and appeared tired, wearing a cozy blanket sleeper that looked like a white bunny. She told Izuku she was tired, and he agreed, picking her up and laying her down on his bed. As she scooted over, Izuku joined her. Eri asked if he would leave her, expressing her fear that her quirk was a curse. She explained that her quirk allowed her to rewind anything she touched, but she couldn't control it, fearing it could make someone disappear. Izuku hugged her tightly, reassuring her that quirks made people special and that her quirk was a blessing, just like she was a blessing in his life. Eri looked up at him, and Izuku continued to comfort her, emphasizing how amazing he thought her quirk was. Overwhelmed by his kind words, Eri began to cry. Izuku, surprised, held her close as she cried on his chest, gently petting her head. He asked if he had said something wrong, but Eri quickly clarified that she felt happy. With a smile through her tears, she expressed her love for him before dozing off to sleep. Izuku smiled softly, caressing her hair and whispering that he loved her too. They both fell asleep peacefully. Meanwhile, a meeting was taking place among the pro-heroes. Sir Night-Eye addressed the group, explaining why he had gathered them. Endeavor and the others were curious about the reason for the meeting, except for Miriko and Ryukyu. Sir Night-Eye revealed that the two had encountered Kai Chisaki, shocking the heroes. Fatgum asked what had happened, and Sir Night-Eye explained that they found Chisaki on the floor, injured and without hands. The heroes were taken aback by this revelation. Sir Night-Eye urged them to listen as Miriko and Ryukyu recounted their patrol. They had heard screams from an alleyway and rushed to investigate, only to find Chisaki bleeding out, with someone standing over him, holding a shotgun and Eri. Miriko had jumped in to confront the assailant but was thrown aside, leaving Ryukyu to face him alone. Ryukyu explained that they hadn't seen the attacker's face, but he was tall and strong, wearing armor. Sir Night-Eye commended Ryukyu for her quick thinking, and the heroes agreed to search for the mysterious figure to ensure Eri's safety. Miriko and Ryukyu discussed their thoughts on the situation, speculating about the attacker's intentions. They both acknowledged the strength of their opponent and resolved to find a way to catch him. After sharing a few more words, they parted ways, determined to uncover the truth. The chapter shifted to Jairu practicing on her guitar. As she tuned her instrument, she remembered that she had Izuku's number. Contemplating whether to call or text him, she picked up her phone, ready to reach out. He could still be asleep, so maybe Jairu should text him, but if she did, she might miss the message. Jairu thought for a moment and decided to call him. She called Izuku and waited for a bit. Meanwhile, Izuku was in the kitchen, wearing a pink apron and looking at a cookbook. Eri was in the living room, watching cartoons and sipping her chocolate milk. As Izuku tried to make pancakes, his phone started to ring in the living room. Izuku asked Eri to pass him his phone. Eri responded enthusiastically, putting her chocolate milk down on the table, grabbing his phone from the couch and running over to him. After receiving the phone, Izuku thanked her, and she returned to the couch to continue enjoying her drink. He answered the call. Jairu greeted him with a shy good morning, and Izuku returned the sentiment. She wanted to know if he had any plans for the day. Izuku explained that he was taking care of Eri. Jairu was surprised to learn about Eri, his adoptive daughter, and thought it was sweet of him to adopt her. Jairu then asked if she could come over to meet Eri, and Izuku agreed, offering to pick her up. Jairu provided her address, and they exchanged friendly goodbyes. Izuku felt a blush creeping up as he liked the nickname Jairu had given him. Suddenly, he smelled something burning and rushed to the oven, realizing he had almost ruined the pancakes. Eri laughed at the sight of her dad running around in a pink apron. Meanwhile, Jairu ended the call, blushing at the thought of Izuku calling her by her first name. She covered her face with her hands and lay back on her bed, feeling giddy. After a moment, she decided to take a shower and got up to head to her bathroom. After Izuku's little kitchen mishap, he decided to try making pancakes again tomorrow. Right now, he and Eri were walking to Jairu's house, holding hands as they strolled down the road. Eri asked where they were going, and Izuku explained they were visiting a friend. As they walked, they heard a commotion nearby. Eri's concern grew, and she urged Izuku to help if someone was hurt. Izuku hesitated, feeling protective of Eri, but she insisted they had to help. After a moment of contemplation, Izuku agreed, telling Eri to stay behind him as they approached the noise. They arrived at the scene to find a man waving a gun around while holding someone hostage. The police were trying to negotiate, urging the criminal to let the girl go. Izuku felt a surge of determination as he noticed Eri trembling in fear. He spotted a woman with blonde hair carrying groceries nearby and approached her, asking her to watch over Eri for a moment. The woman agreed, and Izuku crouched down to Eri's level, reassuring her that he would be back. Eri, still shaken, nodded and walked over to the woman, who introduced herself as Katsuki Bakugo. She smiled at Eri, who felt a bit better. As Izuku moved closer to the criminal, the tension in the air was palpable. The criminal aimed his gun at Izuku, demanding he stop. But Izuku continued to advance, and the criminal began to panic. In a desperate attempt to intimidate Izuku, he fired, hitting him in the shoulder. The crowd gasped, but Izuku brushed off the pain and continued toward the criminal. With the girl still in danger, she took the opportunity to stomp on the criminal's foot, breaking free from his grip. Izuku seized the moment, grabbing the criminal and wrestling him to the ground. The criminal struggled, trying to shoot Izuku again, but Izuku was relentless. He disarmed the criminal, taking the gun from him and throwing it aside. With the police finally able to act, they apprehended the criminal and placed him in 𝐒𝐮𝐦𝐸𝐵𝐹S. The officer in charge announced that they had him under control. Someone call an ambulance. While the police apprehended the criminal, Izuku walked back to Eri, who ran to him and hugged him tightly. She asked if he was okay, and he reassured her that he was fine, though he could feel the shocked stares of the onlookers. Wanting to leave, he suggested they get out of there, picking Eri up in his arms. Eri noticed the BLD on him and expressed her concern, while Mitsuki urged him to wait for the ambulance. Izuku thought about stopping the bleeding but decided to sit down on the sidewalk with Eri. As they waited, curious bystanders approached Izuku, bombarding him with questions about his well-being and how he managed to remain unharmed. One question stood out: "What's your quirk?" Izuku quietly admitted that he didn't have a quirk, which shocked everyone around him. The civilians were taken aback, and Mitsuki was astonished that someone quirkless could take down a criminal. Eri, unaware of her papa's lack of a quirk, didn't care about it. She was just relieved he was safe. Soon, the ambulance arrived and began tending to Izuku's injuries. Eri wished she could use her quirk to heal him, but she feared that doing so might erase him from existence. Izuku understood her hesitation and encouraged her to stay calm. After being patched up, Izuku was ready to leave. A girl approached him, wanting to thank him for saving her. She nervously introduced herself as Pony Tsunatori, and Izuku quietly acknowledged her. They exchanged names, and Eri reminded Izuku that they should be going. Pony hesitated, asking for Izuku's phone number, which he agreed to share before they left. The civilians still had questions, but the police kept them at bay as Izuku and Eri walked toward Jiru's house. Eri asked if he was okay, and he reassured her that he was fine. As they walked in silence, Eri worried that his injuries were her fault for urging him to go to the scene. Noticing her distress, Izuku stopped and knelt to her level, explaining that it wasn't her fault. He told her that he was glad she wanted to help and that he had made the choice to intervene. Eri felt reassured by his words and hugged him tightly, smiling as Izuku picked her up. He expressed how grateful he was to have found her, saying she had changed him in ways he never could have imagined. Eri's eyes filled with tears of happiness as she listened, and she leaned against his chest, letting her emotions flow. Izuku promised her that he loved her and that nothing would change that. After a brief time skip, Izuku and Eri stood in front of Jiru's door. Izuku knocked and they waited. Eri asked why they were there, and Izuku explained that his friend wanted to hang out with them. The door opened to reveal Mika, who noticed the BLD on Izuku's shirt and the bandage on his hand. She greeted them and invited them inside, leading them to the living room. Eri complimented Mika's appearance, and Izuku agreed, unaware that Mika had overheard him. As Mika went to fetch Kyoka, Eri played with Izuku's hair, enjoying their time together. When Kyoka arrived, she was shocked to see Izuku's injuries and asked what had happened. He downplayed the situation, assuring her he was fine. He introduced Eri as his daughter, and they exchanged pleasantries. Kyoka suggested they do something fun, but Izuku admitted he had no plans. She expressed interest in visiting his place, and just as they were about to leave, Mika asked if she could join them. Kyoka agreed, and Izuku welcomed Mika along. They all left for Izuku's house. Upon arriving, Kyoka admired the cozy atmosphere of Izuku's home. He encouraged them to make themselves comfortable while he went to change. Mika asked to use the bathroom, and he directed her down the hall. Eri approached Kyoka, expressing her admiration for her hair and asking if she could play with it. Kyoka happily agreed, and they began to bond over their shared interests. "As long as I can play with your hair," Eri agreed, and they both began to play with each other's hair. After some time, Mika left the bathroom and walked through the hallway, hearing someone talking. She turned towards the voice and noticed an open door. Peering inside, she saw Izuku struggling to take off his shirt, hindered by the bandages covering his wounds. Each attempt caused him pain in his shoulder. Mika hesitated before speaking, asking if he was okay and if he needed help. Izuku welcomed the assistance, and Mika entered his room, closing the door behind her. She approached him and helped him remove his shirt, revealing his battle scars and muscular physique. Mika was taken aback by what she saw, captivated by his scars and muscles. In a moment of fascination, she sat Izuku on the bed and continued to examine his body. Izuku sat there, blushing at her attention. He finally spoke up, prompting Mika to snap out of her trance and apologize, pulling her hands away. Izuku got up to grab a random shirt from his closet, while Mika remained on the bed, still blushing. As Izuku put on his shirt, Mika expressed her regret for her earlier actions. Izuku reassured her that it was all right but wondered why she had reacted that way. Mika admitted she was simply amazed by his physique, feeling embarrassed by her admission. Izuku then asked about her marital status, to which Mika revealed she was not married anymore due to her previous partner's poor character. Izuku expressed his sympathy, and Mika reassured him that she and 𝐒𝐿𝐴 were better off now. Mika laid her head on Izuku's shoulder, and he placed a comforting hand on her shoulder, rubbing it gently. She smiled, enjoying the moment, while Izuku rested his head on hers, feeling the softness of her hair against his cheek. They both relished the silence until Mika placed her hand on top of Izuku's. Noticing her gesture, he turned his hand to hold hers, and she smiled, squeezing it gently. They both lifted their heads and gazed into each other's eyes, moving closer together. As they closed their eyes, their lips met in a tender kiss. Mika placed her hand on Izuku's cheek, and he gently laid her back on the bed. They broke the kiss, and Izuku kissed her neck, causing her to react softly. After a moment, they both paused, breathing heavily. Mika asked why he had stopped, and Izuku reminded her about Eri and 𝐒𝐿𝐴. Realizing the situation, Mika agreed, and Izuku got off her. They both adjusted their clothes, and Izuku helped her up, suggesting they not keep the others waiting. They left his room and entered the living room, where 𝐒𝐿𝐴 and Eri were playing with each other's hair. Eri proudly showed off her hairstyle, while 𝐒𝐿𝐴 pointed out her own. Mika struggled to suppress a laugh at 𝐒𝐿𝐴's hair, while Izuku picked Eri up, complimenting her appearance and spinning her around. Eri giggled as he set her back down, and Izuku asked what they should do next. Eri suggested watching a movie, and both Mika and 𝐒𝐿𝐴 agreed. When Izuku asked which movie, Eri excitedly declared she wanted to watch a SpongeBob movie. Izuku smiled at her enthusiasm, and they all settled on the couch, with Eri on his lap. As they began watching the movie, Izuku shared that he liked SpongeBob too but asked Eri to keep it a secret. Unbeknownst to them, Mika and 𝐒𝐿𝐴 overheard their exchange, finding it endearing. After the movie ended, Izuku stretched and asked Eri if she enjoyed it. When she didn't respond, he looked down to find her asleep on his chest. Mika noted that 𝐒𝐿𝐴 had also fallen asleep beside him. She mentioned needing to take 𝐒𝐿𝐴 home, but Izuku offered for her to stay since he didn't have an extra room. Mika agreed, and Izuku asked her to take Eri to her room, which was next to his. Mika took Eri to her room, and Izuku carefully laid 𝐒𝐿𝐴's head on a pillow before retrieving a blanket from his closet. He returned to the living room and covered 𝐒𝐿𝐴 with the blanket. When Mika returned, she asked where she would sleep. Izuku suggested she could sleep with him, if that was all right. Mika agreed, feeling a mix of excitement and nervousness as they headed to Izuku's room. Once inside, they climbed into bed, lying next to each other. An awkward silence filled the air, and Mika wanted to say something but struggled to find the right words. Just then, Izuku turned toward her and wrapped his arm around her waist. Mika hesitated, unsure of how to respond. After a moment, she decided to embrace the moment and turned to hug Izuku. They both felt a sense of comfort as they lay in each other's arms. Mika spoke up, her voice soft, asking Izuku a question. He looked down at her, and in that instant she leaned in and kissed him. Izuku was taken by surprise but quickly melted into the kiss. When they broke apart, Mika looked into his eyes, feeling a rush of emotions. She apologized, unsure of what had just happened, but Izuku gently caressed her cheek, reassuring her that it was okay. He leaned in to kiss her again, and this time, Mika felt her heart race with joy as she held his cheek, savoring every moment. They shared another kiss, and as they did, Izuku shifted, positioning himself above her. Mika held his face in her hands, feeling a mix of shyness and longing. She asked if they could take their intimacy further, her cheeks flushed. Izuku, with a small smile, assured her they could if she was comfortable. Mika nodded, her blush deepening, and Izuku leaned in to kiss her neck, eliciting a soft sigh from her. As they continued to explore their feelings, Mika felt a wave of warmth and affection wash over her. They shared a wonderful night together, filled with tenderness and connection. The next morning, Mika woke up first, the sunlight streaming through the window. She rubbed her eyes, trying to shake off the sleepiness. Everything was a bit blurry, and she fumbled around for her glasses. After finding them on the desk, she put them on and looked around the room. Next to her lay Izuku, bathed in the morning light. She couldn't help but admire him, but then she noticed something that made her blush deeply. She was not fully dressed. She quickly covered herself with the blanket, her heart racing as she realized the implications of the night before. Mika looked around and saw their clothes scattered on the floor, confirming her suspicions. She felt a mix of disbelief and excitement, covering her face with her hands as she processed what had happened. As she turned to look at Izuku, he stirred and rolled over, the blanket slipping off him. Mika felt her cheeks heat up even more. Just then, she felt Izuku pull her into a warm hug, and she nestled against him, feeling safe and cozy. But suddenly, she felt a rush of confusion and embarrassment as she noticed their closeness. She tried to wiggle away but found herself caught in the moment. Mika's heart raced as she contemplated what to do next. She decided to take a leap of faith, wanting to explore this new chapter of their relationship. She felt a mix of nervousness and excitement, wondering how Izuku would respond. As they embraced the morning together, they both knew that their bond had deepened, and they were ready to face whatever came next, together. "I'm fine," she thought as she balanced herself and entered the bathroom. She then started to take a shower. Meanwhile, Izuku was selecting some clothes from his closet. He felt a sense of satisfaction knowing he had pleased her, but he couldn't shake the feeling that he wasn't quite finished. As he recalled how Mika had looked earlier, a slight blush crept onto his cheeks, but he quickly dismissed it. Frustrated, he muttered to himself and grabbed the clothes he needed, placing them on the desk. He then went to his bed and began to tidy it up. After a while, Mika emerged from the shower wrapped in a towel. As she stepped out, she noticed the bed was made, and a set of clothes lay neatly on it, accompanied by a note. She approached and read it. It said, "Dear Mika, I left to wash our clothes. I won't be back for a while, so I would appreciate it if you watched Eri while I'm gone." Mika felt a warm blush as she read the note from Izuku, expressing her enjoyment of their time together. She set the note aside and changed into Izuku's clothes, hugging them tightly with a smile. The oversized blonde sweater and shorts felt cozy against her skin. After adjusting her glasses, she left Izuku's room and headed to the living room. In the living room, she saw Kyoka and Eri sitting with their bowls of cereal, engrossed in a show on TV. Mika greeted them with a calming smile, and they returned her greeting. Kyoka finished her cereal and stood up, asking Mika if they could talk privately. Mika eagerly followed her daughter to the kitchen. Kyoka, placing her bowl in the sink, asked about Izuku, her curiosity evident. Mika, caught off guard, blushed and questioned what Kyoka meant. Kyoka revealed that she had heard some noises last night, and her cheeks flushed as she admitted to having watched. Mika's surprise deepened as she asked when this had happened. Kyoka recounted a moment from the previous night when she had woken up to strange sounds. She had followed the noise and peeked through a slightly open door, witnessing a scene that left her flustered. The memory made her feel conflicted, and she found herself lost in thoughts about the situation. As Kyoka recalled the moment, she felt a mix of emotions, grappling with her feelings while watching her mother and Izuku. Afterward, she had quietly left the scene, feeling both exhilarated and confused. Returning to the present, Kyoka explained what had happened, and Mika sighed in relief that Eri hadn't heard anything. They shared an awkward silence before Mika asked if Kyoka had enjoyed what she had seen. Kyoka admitted that she had, leading to a conversation about feelings and relationships. Mika encouraged Kyoka to express her feelings to Izuku when he returned, assuring her that it was important to share her emotions. With a newfound determination, Kyoka agreed to take her mother's advice. Mika then suggested they check on Eri, and they headed back to the living room. Kyoka reflected on her feelings for Izuku, hoping he felt the same way. Meanwhile, Izuku waited for his clothes to dry, distracted by his phone. He noticed a mother and her son playing together, triggering fond memories of his childhood. His thoughts were interrupted when someone approached him, asking for spare change. "I don't have enough for the drying machine." Izuku nods as he reaches into his wallet and takes out some change. The girl thanks him profusely as he hands her the coins. Izuku responds with a shy acknowledgement. She introduces herself as Ryukyu Tatsuma and extends her hand for a shake. Izuku introduces himself, feeling a bit awkward about his last name. Ryukyu apologizes for asking, and Izuku reassures her that it's fine. She then runs off, leaving him to check his phone. Izuku suddenly recalls that she is the hero he encountered a few days ago. He glances over and sees her turning on the machine. As she stands up, her hair flows gracefully, and Izuku can't help but admire her beauty, feeling a blush creep onto his cheeks. Ryukyu turns around and notices him, rubbing the back of her head with a smile, acknowledging their proximity. While waiting for their clothes, Ryukyu asks Izuku about himself. He hesitates, unsure of what to say, but eventually mentions that he spends time with his daughter. Ryukyu finds this endearing and asks what they do together. Izuku admits they watch SpongeBob often, and she expresses her delight at their shared interest in the show. As they chat, Ryukyu compliments him, causing Izuku to blush again. Realizing how it sounded, she quickly apologizes and moves away, concerned about giving the wrong impression. Izuku clarifies that he is not married, and Ryukyu seems intrigued by the idea that he is single. She leans closer, asking if he is free tomorrow, which he confirms. Their conversation takes a flirtatious turn, and Ryukyu suggests it sounds like a date. As they lean in closer, the moment is interrupted by the sound of a washing machine, snapping them back to reality. They both laugh awkwardly, and Izuku resumes folding his clothes. Ryukyu offers to help, and they finish putting his clothes away together. Before parting, Izuku gives her his number, and she promises to call him. As he walks away, Ryukyu stands there, blushing and reflecting on how she managed to stay calm. Meanwhile, Izuku walks home, contemplating what just happened and how to explain it to his daughter, Mika. Later that night, Izuku arrives home to find the lights off. He notices Mika watching TV with Eri asleep on her lap. She greets him softly, but Izuku walks past her, lost in thought. Sensing something is off, Mika follows him to his room, where he is putting away his clothes. She hugs him from behind, prompting him to share about meeting Ryukyu and the date they planned. Mika listens intently and encourages him, understanding that he might not be the only one to attract attention. She expresses her longing to meet Ryukyu before anything progresses, and Izuku appreciates her support. They share a tender moment, with Mika kissing him on the cheek and expressing her love for him. As they embrace, Mika remembers that Kyoka intends to confess her feelings to Izuku. She gets up, telling him she will be in the living room. As she leaves, she almost bumps into Kyoka, who is blushing and nervous about her own confession. Kyoka felt a mix of excitement and nervousness as she prepared to speak with Izuku. She took a deep breath and approached his room. Upon entering, she found Izuku organizing his clothes. She hesitated, her voice barely above a whisper as she called out to him. Izuku turned to her, curious about what she wanted to say. Kyoka struggled to express her feelings, her cheeks flushed and her fingers fidgeting with her earphone jack. Noticing her discomfort, Izuku stepped closer, placing a gentle hand on her forehead. Kyoka felt her heart race at his touch, and she instinctively grabbed his hand, guiding it to rest on her head. She looked up at him, her expression flustered, and Izuku couldn't help but think she looked adorable. He began to pet her head, and she closed her eyes, savoring the moment. After a while, Kyoka leaned in closer, and their eyes met. In a bold move, she stood on her toes and kissed him softly. Izuku reciprocated, and they shared a tender moment, lost in each other's presence. Kyoka then confessed her feelings, and Izuku admitted he felt the same way. As their connection deepened, Kyoka pulled him closer, and they shared another kiss, this time more passionate. Izuku held her tightly, and she wrapped her legs around him, feeling a rush of emotions. In the midst of their moment, Kyoka whispered a question, her voice barely audible. Izuku, sensing her eagerness, encouraged her, and she responded affirmatively, giving him a quick kiss on the cheek. With a sense of urgency, they moved to a more private space, where Kyoka began to unfasten Izuku's briefs while he helped her with her shorts. They embraced, sharing kisses and tender touches, their hearts racing. Meanwhile, Mika, hearing the commotion, decided to take Eri to her room, ensuring the little girl wouldn't overhear anything. She thought to herself that she hadn't expected things to escalate so quickly between Kyoka and Izuku but felt prepared for whatever came next. Back with Kyoka and Izuku, their kisses grew more intense, and Kyoka covered her mouth to stifle her sounds of pleasure. Izuku held her close, and she wrapped her arms around him, feeling the warmth of their connection. As they reached a peak of emotion, Kyoka felt a wave of warmth wash over her, leaving her breathless and clinging to Izuku. He gently pulled away, checking in on her, and she assured him she was just tired, snuggling against him. Izuku helped her adjust her clothes and promised to get her clean clothes in the morning. He laid her down on his bed, covering her with a blanket and giving her a soft kiss before returning to his chores. Once he finished, he turned off the light and stepped out of his room, whispering a good night to Kyoka. In the living room, he found Mika wrapped in a blanket, inviting him to join her. Izuku settled beside her, taking off her glasses and placing them on the table before turning off the TV. They shared a sweet goodnight kiss, and soon, both drifted off to sleep, content in each other's company. However, Izuku was soon awakened by the sound of his phone ringing. He reached for it, noting the early hour, and answered to hear Ryukyu's voice on the other end. She greeted him and asked if he was awake, to which he lied, saying he was already up. Ryukyu then suggested they go to the festival for their date that day. If that sounds okay, Izuku thinks it sounds like a plan as he gently pets Mika's head. Ryukyu suggests meeting at the park around 10:30, and Izuku agrees, saying it sounds nice. Ryukyu confirms their plans, and Izuku replies that he will see her later before she hangs up. He puts his phone away and stretches, then softly shakes Mika's shoulder to wake her. She groans, asking for just a bit more time as she rubs her head against his chest. Izuku acknowledges how nice it is but insists he needs to get up. Mika reluctantly agrees but requests a kiss first, sitting up on Izuku's lap. He agrees and holds her waist as she leans in, wrapping her arms around his neck. After a moment, Mika pulls back, taking his hand and guiding it suggestively. Izuku, surprised, questions her intentions, and she playfully insists it will be quick. He sighs but agrees, starting to rub her gently. Mika lays her head on his shoulder, and as the moment intensifies, Izuku stops, causing her to question why he halted. He flips them over, now on top of her, and reassures her to relax. After a brief moment, he lifts her legs onto his shoulders. The atmosphere becomes charged, and Mika covers her mouth with her hand, stifling her sounds of surprise. Izuku, feeling the tension, wipes his mouth afterward and checks in with her, asking if she is satisfied. Mika, with a content expression, confirms she is. He pets her head as she adjusts her breathes and wraps herself in a blanket. Izuku announces he needs to get ready for their date and leaves the living room. Later, Izuku stands at the front door with Mika and Kyoka while Eri watches TV in the living room. He is dressed casually in a white t-shirt, ripped jeans, and a brown jacket. He checks in with Mika, asking if she is sure about watching Eri. She assures him that she and Kyoka know what they are doing, and Kyoka encourages him to enjoy his date, playfully pushing him toward the door. Izuku picks Kyoka up, gives both girls a kiss on the cheek, and leaves the house, waving goodbye as they call after him to be careful and have fun. Time passes, and Izuku finds himself sitting on a bench in the park, waiting for Ryukyu. As he looks around, he sees a family enjoying their time together and reminisces about moments spent with Inko during his childhood. He wonders how she is doing, shaking his head at the thought. Just then, he feels a tap on his shoulder and turns to see Ryukyu approaching, dressed in a black sweater with red stripes and black jeans. She asks if she kept him waiting long, and he assures her he just arrived. Ryukyu expresses her nervousness about the date, admitting she has never been on one before. Izuku reveals he hasn't either, and they share a moment of mutual understanding. Eager to get to the festival, Ryukyu takes his hand and starts to run, causing Izuku to blush slightly at their connected hands. Meanwhile, a group of creatures lurks in an alleyway, drawn by the sounds of the festival. They climb a building to get a better view, their eyes fixed on the crowd below, ready to descend upon the festivities. Back at the festival, Ryukyu releases Izuku's hand and asks what they should do first. He suggests playing some games, leading her to a booth where they can knock down cans to win a plush toy. After paying, Izuku hands Ryukyu a ball, and she takes her shot, hitting the cans but not knocking them over. Frustrated, she tries again, but the cans remain standing. Izuku decides to give it a try, and with a determined throw, he knocks the stack over effortlessly. Ryukyu is amazed, asking how he did it, and he simply replies that he threw it hard. The booth attendant, startled, backs away as Izuku claims the plush and hands it to Ryukyu, who hugs it tightly, delighted. Izuku suggests they get something to eat, and Ryukyu happily agrees, resting her head against him as they walk. The booth attendant, still shaken, mutters to himself about Izuku's intimidating presence. As they stroll, they enjoy funnel cake, with Ryukyu exclaiming how delicious it is. Izuku admits he is surprised by how good it is, revealing he doesn't eat many sweets. Ryukyu is taken aback, asking what he usually eats, and Izuku shrugs, uncertain. What do you mean you don't know? Izuku hadn't eaten sweets in a long time. Ryukyu decided she would get him some sweets later. Izuku agreed, and she hugged him tightly. Just as he sat down, a sudden crash and screams pierced the air. Ryukyu exclaimed that it didn't sound good, and Izuku agreed as they both rushed towards the source of the commotion. Upon arriving, they saw a group of creatures attacking people. One creature lunged at a little girl, poised to harm her, but Izuku swiftly kicked it away. The creature flew into a nearby tent, and Ryukyu quickly moved to Izuku's side. She instructed him to get the child to safety, and without hesitation she picked the little girl up, assuring her that Izuku would be fine because he was very strong. With that, she ran off with the girl. Izuku faced the creature as it crawled out of the tent, screeching and alerting its companions. The other creatures stopped their attacks and converged around him. 7 imps surrounded Izuku, and he recognized them as the demons his father had warned him about. The imps screeched and leaped at him. He dashed forward, clotheslining one of them, which fell to the ground. Izuku stomped down, incapacitating it. Another imp jumped onto his back, biting into his shoulder. Izuku grabbed it and tossed it aside. Yet another imp lunged at him, claws aimed at his face, but he caught it and broke its arm. He kicked it away and hurled the severed arm at another imp, striking it in the head. With 5 imps remaining, they all jumped at him. He dodged one and caught another by the neck, snapping it with a swift motion and tossing it aside. Another imp charged at him, and he delivered a punch that sent his hand through its chest. He struggled to pull it out, realizing it was stuck. Just then, one of the imps slashed at the back of his leg, causing him to fall to one knee. An imp jumped on him, but he kicked it off. Frustrated, he pushed the remaining 3 off and stood up, freeing his hand from the imp's torso, though he sustained a cut in the process. Fueled by determination, he charged at one of the imps, grabbing it by the neck and swiftly dispatching it. An imp leaped at him from behind, but he swung the severed spine of another imp, knocking it to the ground. He stomped on its chest, ensuring it wouldn't rise again. Izuku turned his attention to the last imp, which was attempting to flee. He commanded it to come back as he approached. The creature tried to escape, but Izuku pulled an arm from a fallen imp and threw it, striking the fleeing imp in the leg, causing it to fall. As it crawled away, Izuku advanced. Just then, Ryukyu returned and was taken aback by the scene before her. She called out for Izuku, her voice filled with concern. Hearing the screeching, she rushed over and found Izuku standing over the defeated imp, breathing heavily. As he stood, Ryukyu approached him, her eyes widening in shock at the injuries he had sustained. She exclaimed in horror, asking what had happened to him. Izuku reassured her that he was okay, standing tall despite the pain. Ryukyu's concern deepened as she noticed the injury on his shoulder. He downplayed it, insisting it was nothing, but she pointed out the significant wound. Izuku acknowledged that one of the imps had gotten a piece of him, holding his shoulder. Ryukyu insisted on helping him back at her place, determined to take care of his injury. Izuku hesitated, but Ryukyu was firm in her resolve. "Let me help you." Izuku hesitated for a moment, but Ryukyu gently held his cheek and pleaded with him. After a sigh, he agreed. She smiled, took his hand, and they ran off together. Before they left, he grabbed the plush toy that had been on the floor, showing it to her as they continued to run. She thanked him, and they dashed away. As they ran, more people began to gather at the scene, witnessing the aftermath of the chaos. They were horrified by what they saw but also felt a sense of relief, grateful for Izuku's intervention. Later, Izuku sat on a bed while Ryukyu tended to his shoulder. She remarked on how fortunate it was that she had gone to medical school, finishing her work with a smile. She then asked him about what had happened earlier. Izuku, somewhat evasive, insisted that the beings he had faced were not people but demons. Ryukyu expressed her belief in the existence of demons, given their quirks. Izuku explained that the creatures they had encountered were the weaker ones, known as imps, and that there were larger, stronger ones out there. Ryukyu questioned the necessity of his brutal actions, to which Izuku replied that he showed no mercy to his enemies. She acknowledged his perspective and decided to let it go, sitting beside him. He thanked her, and she suggested watching a movie. Izuku agreed, standing up as she took his hand. They moved to the living room, where Ryukyu instructed him to find a movie while she prepared popcorn in the kitchen. Izuku picked up the remote and browsed through the options, finally settling on one that caught his interest. He paused the movie, waiting for her return. When Ryukyu came back, she sat down next to him and saw the movie he had chosen. She leaned against him as he wrapped his arm around her, and they started the film together. After some time, the movie ended, and Ryukyu lay on Izuku, who had his arm around her waist. She commented on how good the movie was, but when she looked up, she noticed he had fallen asleep. Smiling, she carefully moved his arms and got up to change into comfortable clothes. Grabbing a blanket from her bed, she returned to the living room and laid back down beside him, covering them both with the blanket. As his arms instinctively wrapped around her, she smiled and snuggled her head against his chest, drifting off to sleep. Meanwhile, the pro-heroes were at the festival, investigating the scene of the chaos. Hawks remarked on the brutality of the situation, while Midnight expressed her disgust at the smell. Aizawa returned, noting that no one had seen who was responsible. Hawks considered it a good starting point, and Midnight was confident they would find the culprit. Aizawa sighed, aware that it would be a long night ahead. Back at the couch, Izuku and Ryukyu were peacefully sleeping together. Their slumber was interrupted by the vibration of Ryukyu's phone on the table. She woke up and reached for it, but Izuku's grip on her prevented her from getting up. She whispered his name, shaking his chest gently. When he didn't respond, she held his face, and he finally released her. Sitting up, she grabbed her phone and answered the call. Mariko's voice came through, asking how she was doing. Ryukyu, still groggy, reminded her that it was early in the morning. Mariko apologized and then shifted the conversation to something important about the previous day. As Ryukyu moved to sit on the couch, Izuku rubbed his eyes and listened. Mariko revealed that there had been a massacre at the fair, with BLD and bodies everywhere. Ryukyu was shocked, and Izuku, feeling protective, hugged her from behind. She smiled, holding his hand wrapped around her waist. As Mariko continued to speak, Izuku leaned in and kissed her neck, causing her to blush. She struggled to maintain her composure as she responded to Mariko, thanking her for the information while trying to keep her voice steady. "You sound like you just finished running a marathon." Ryukyu replied that she was fine, just a bit flustered. As she tried to speak, Izuku playfully nibbled on her neck, causing her to blush and let out a small sound of surprise. Mariko, on the other end of the call, noticed the reaction and questioned it. Ryukyu quickly ended the call, her face flushed, and turned to Izuku, asking why he had done that. He apologized, admitting he couldn't resist, and hugged her tightly. Ryukyu expressed her embarrassment, and Izuku asked who she had been talking to. She explained it was her best friend, who had informed her about a meeting later that day. Izuku inquired if she needed to leave right away, to which she replied that she usually had meetings around 2 in the afternoon. Relieved, Izuku laid back with her on top of him, happy that he didn't have to leave just yet. As they shared a tender moment, Ryukyu kissed him on the lips, reminding him not to do that again. Izuku agreed, returning her kiss, and they both smiled at each other. He held her waist, deepening the kiss, and she cupped his face in her hands, feeling a rush of warmth. They shared a few more kisses, and Izuku playfully kissed her neck, which made her blush even more. She held his head against her neck, feeling a mix of excitement and shyness. However, she soon suggested they move to her bedroom. Once inside, she locked the door and sat him on the bed, feeling a bit nervous. As she settled on his lap, they shared more kisses, and she felt a thrill at the closeness. Izuku's hands found their way to her waist, and she held him close, feeling a rush of emotions. As they continued to kiss, Ryukyu felt a mix of embarrassment and excitement. She playfully pushed him away, suggesting they take things slow. Izuku, understanding her hesitation, reassured her that it was okay. They both agreed to take their time, and he expressed that he only wanted her to be happy. After a moment of tenderness, they decided to wash up together, sharing a light-hearted moment as they headed to the bathroom. Later, they found themselves in front of Izuku's house. He mentioned that the two girls he had told her about lived there. Ryukyu was surprised that he hadn't mentioned dating two girls before, but Izuku explained that they hadn't discussed it, and the girls had asked him to let her know. She accepted the situation, feeling relieved that they were all on good terms. As they entered his home, Ryukyu admired the cozy atmosphere. Izuku noticed a note on the table, which read that the girls had taken Eri shopping and would be back soon. Izuku wondered why no one had texted him. Ryukyu speculated that perhaps no one was home, and Izuku confirmed that they had gone shopping. She then asked what he wanted to do, to which he inquired if she knew how to cook. Ryukyu admitted she dabbled in cooking, and Izuku asked if she could teach him. Excitedly, she agreed and moved in front of him. They headed to the kitchen, where Izuku handed her a cooking robe. He tied his around his waist and turned to find Ryukyu struggling with hers. Offering assistance, he tied it for her, and she thanked him. They decided to make katsudon together, and despite Izuku's initial struggles, Ryukyu guided him through the steps, making the experience enjoyable. After some time, they finally finished cooking. Ryukyu admired their creation but wondered how it tasted. Izuku tasted it and confirmed it was good. She was pleased to hear that he liked it, and he shared that he used to eat it a lot as a child, though it reminded him of things he preferred to forget. Ryukyu expressed her sympathy, and just then, they heard the front door open. Izuku suspected they were back and took off his cooking robe. Eri ran in, excited to see him, and he welcomed her with open arms, lifting her up and hugging her with a smile. Ryukyu watched in surprise, realizing that Eri was the child Izuku had mentioned. Mika and Kyoka approached Ryukyu, with Mika greeting her and Kyoka expressing surprise at discovering she was the dragon hero. Ryukyu acknowledged her identity, feeling a bit flustered. As they chatted, Ryukyu decided she needed to leave for a meeting with other heroes, making her excuses. Izuku asked if she was leaving, and she confirmed she had to go. Eri, curious, asked who Ryukyu was, and Izuku explained that she was a hero. Eri was fascinated by the idea of a dragon hero, and Ryukyu explained her ability to transform into a giant dragon. Izuku picked Eri up and said goodbye to Ryukyu, giving her a friendly kiss on the cheek. She rushed out, and Izuku reflected on the situation. Mika and Kyoka called out to him, bringing him back to the present. They noticed he seemed lost in thought, and after some back and forth, he admitted he was just thinking. Eri suggested they watch SpongeBob, and Izuku agreed, putting on the show. Meanwhile, Mika and Kyoka exchanged worried glances about Izuku's demeanor. Later, Ryukyu sat nervously with the other heroes. Mariko asked about the meeting, and Night Eye explained it was about the previous night's incident. Aizawa mentioned the massacre, and Midnight inquired about what Night Eye had discovered. Night Eye revealed that they had spoken to witnesses who described the assailant, and he produced a drawing based on their accounts. Ryukyu felt a wave of anxiety wash over her as Night Eye described the individual, noting his green hair, emerald eyes, and muscular build. Mariko commented on the strength depicted in the drawing, while Ryukyu couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. Night Eye then revealed the person's name, Izuku Midoriya, the boy who had gone missing months ago. Miriko expressed surprise at how much he had changed and asked if they knew where he lived. Night Eye indicated they had a general area from their research. As the heroes prepared to search for him, Ryukyu hesitated, stating she couldn't assist due to personal matters. Miriko pressed her for details, but Ryukyu deflected the question. As the heroes began to leave, Miriko brought up an earlier phone call where Ryukyu had unintentionally made a noise. Ryukyu explained it was just her boyfriend, which surprised Miriko. After a brief exchange, Miriko left, and Ryukyu resolved to warn Izuku. Meanwhile, Izuku was still with Eri, Mika, and Kyoka, watching SpongeBob when he received a call from Ryukyu. He excused himself, heading to the kitchen to answer. Ryukyu urgently informed him that the heroes had discovered his location and urged him to leave immediately. Izuku, realizing the gravity of the situation, rushed back to the living room, picking up Eri as he explained that the heroes knew where he was. Kyoka was confused and concerned, wanting to understand what was happening. "Are you in trouble or something?" Izuku could be described as a vigilante as he rushed to his room with Eri. Mika and Kyoka shouted in surprise as they got up. Izuku opened his room door and went to his dresser. He opened a drawer and took out a device, pushing a button that caused a screen to hover above it. On the screen, Izuku's dad. Doomguy asked what was wrong, and Izuku explained that the heroes had found his location. Doomguy realized Eri was with Izuku and quickly reassured him that he would get the portal open. Izuku thanked his dad before hanging up. Eri, concerned, asked what was wrong, and Izuku told her it was nothing, just a visit to Grandpa. Eri cheered with excitement. As the girls entered Izuku's room, Kyoka demanded an explanation. Izuku insisted there was no time as a red portal opened in front of him. Doomguy emerged from the portal, warning that the heroes were close and they didn't have much time. Izuku handed Eri to him, expressing concern about the situation. Doomguy inquired about the girls, and Izuku introduced Kyoka and Mika. Doomguy greeted them warmly, and Mika responded with a smile, while Kyoka pressed for answers. Izuku explained that the heroes were after him because he was a vigilante. Kyoka wanted to know what he had done, and Izuku revealed he had saved Eri from someone. Doomguy reminded him of the demons he had dealt with, and Izuku acknowledged that. Mika was confused by the mention of demons, but Izuku promised to explain later. He urged them to leave quickly, explaining that if the heroes found them together, they would assume the girls were helping him. Mika agreed with his reasoning, and Doomguy insisted they needed to move. As Doomguy stepped through the portal with Eri in his arms, Kyoka urged Izuku to hurry. He assured them he would be right there, needing to take care of something quickly. Mika reminded him to be careful as she and Kyoka entered the portal. Izuku watched as the portal closed, then moved his clothes aside to reveal a screen with a handprint scanner. He placed his hand on it, receiving access granted, and opened it to find his armor and weapons. Izuku declared it was time to see his favorite hero again as he donned his armor. Meanwhile, the heroes had searched everywhere and stood in front of Izuku's house. Hawks wondered how they would proceed, and All Might suggested they knock. He approached the front door and called out, urging anyone inside to surrender. Just then, the building exploded, interrupting him and shocking the heroes. As the house was destroyed, Izuku emerged from the flames, exuding confidence. The heroes took their battle stances, and Hawks felt a sense of dread. Izuku confirmed their fears as he ped his shotgun. A news reporter announced they were watching the confrontation from a helicopter, capturing the moment as Izuku charged at the heroes. Endeavor rushed at Izuku, throwing a punch that Izuku dodged, countering with an uppercut. Endeavor stumbled back, and Izuku prepared to shoot him when Miriko kicked him from behind. Izuku fell forward, allowing Endeavor to regain his footing. Endeavor insisted he didn't need help, while Miriko argued otherwise as she charged at Izuku. Izuku got back up just in time to see Miriko leap at him. She attempted to strike, but he caught her leg and tossed her aside. Hawks then attacked with a sword-like feather, but Izuku blocked it with the blade in his gauntlet. Pushing Hawks away, Izuku retaliated with a slash to his face. Hawks cried out in pain, distracted, and Izuku took the opportunity to kick him in the chest and aim his shotgun at him, revealing his knowledge about the heroes. "Especially if I should stop you," He thinks to himself as he notices the other heroes going to help Hawks. Izuku reflects on Hawks being a true hero as he aims the shotgun away from him. Endeavor unleashes flames at Izuku and Hawks. Izuku quickly picks Hawks up and leaps out of the way of the flames, narrowly avoiding them. Miriko shouts at Endeavor, questioning his actions. Midnight expresses concern that he could have hit Hawks. Endeavor insists he took an opportunity and it's not his fault Hawks was in the way, firing more flames at Izuku. Izuku dodges the flames again, Hawks still over his shoulder, who wonders why Izuku is saving him. Izuku thinks to himself that he doesn't kill heroes, only the fake ones, as he evades another blast of fire. Miriko and Midnight attempt to intervene with Endeavor, but their efforts are in vain. Eventually, Izuku makes a mistake, and a flame blast is about to hit him. He notices and throws Hawks off his shoulder, pushing him out of the way just in time. Izuku puts his arms in front of his face as he is engulfed in flames but powers through, walking toward Endeavor. Endeavor realizes Izuku is enduring the heat and intensifies the flames. Izuku feels the heat increasing and grows weary, yet he continues to press forward. Midnight rushes to help Hawks up, who watches Izuku struggle but also get closer to Endeavor. Despite wanting to stop Izuku, Hawks finds himself unable to intervene. Endeavor reaches his limit and ceases his flame attacks. Both he and Izuku are exhausted, but Izuku manages to dash at Endeavor. Just then, Miriko leaps at Izuku and tackles him to the ground, restraining his arm behind his back. Izuku, too tired from the heat to push her off, continues to struggle. Endeavor, seeing Miriko holding Izuku down, feels frustrated. He thinks to himself that he didn't need help, especially from a woman, as he slowly stands up, his hands glowing with flames. Hawks notices Endeavor's intent and shouts for him to stop as he runs toward him. Miriko hears Hawks and glances at him, realizing Endeavor is about to unleash flames on them. Before Hawks can reach Endeavor, it's too late, flames erupt toward Miriko and Izuku. Just before the flames reach them, Izuku pushes Miriko off his back while she's distracted, stepping in front of her to protect her. He is hit by the flames but continues to dash at Endeavor. Endeavor, too fatigued to react, is met with Izuku's blade emerging from his gauntlet. Izuku strikes, and the heroes watch in shock as the number 2 hero is incapacitated. Izuku pulls the blade back, and Endeavor falls to his knees, clutching his throat in a futile attempt to stop the bleeding. Izuku takes a few deep breaths, observing Endeavor struggle. He moves behind Endeavor, grabbing him by the hair, and whispers about the wrongs Endeavor has committed against his family, expressing his disgust. He then threatens to show him the consequences of his actions, turning Endeavor to face the helicopter. In a swift motion, Izuku delivers a fatal blow. Endeavor's body collapses to the ground, and the heroes stand in shock, witnessing the fall of the number 2 hero. Izuku raises Endeavor's head, showcasing his strength, before letting it drop to the ground, where it rolls to rest beside Endeavor's body. The heroes stare at Izuku in horror, grappling with the reality of what they just witnessed. Izuku declares that this is what happens to those who pretend to be heroes while hiding their crimes. He asserts that he is a doom slayer and will show every faker their doom. As he speaks, All Might charges at him from behind, shouting his signature move. He throws a punch at Izuku with all his might. Izuku, however, turns just in time, his blade emerging from his gauntlet to intercept All Might's fist, causing the blade to embed into All Might's hand. The force of the punch pushes Izuku back, and the blade breaks off. Izuku rolls on the ground but quickly recovers, staring at All Might, who is hunched over in pain, holding his injured fist. Izuku stands slightly leaning forward, telling All Might to be grateful he's not on his kill list as he puts his shotgun away. A red portal opens behind Izuku, and All Might watches as Izuku turns to leave, remarking that it took the number 1 hero a blade to the fist to take him out of commission, calling it pathetic. He steps through the portal, leaving the heroes defeated. All Might stares at Endeavor's lifeless body, feeling a deep sense of failure as he falls to his knees in shame. Meanwhile, Izuku walks through the portal and finds himself on a ship in space. As he removes his helmet, he is greeted by his father, Doom Guy, who praises him for his impressive actions on the news. Izuku humbly acknowledges his father's strength, admitting he doesn't feel as strong. Doomguy reassures him that he is still formidable, especially with the blade in his gauntlet. Izuku mentions that the blade broke off, and Doomguy assures him they can get it fixed. After changing, Izuku hands his armor to Doomguy, who tells him to check on Eri. Izuku agrees and they part ways. As he searches for Eri, he finds her gazing out the window. Eri turns around when she hears Izuku excitedly running to him. He crouches down, arms outstretched, and she jumps into his embrace. Eri asks where he has been, and Izuku explains he was dealing with something, inquiring about her activities. Eri shares that she was simply staring out the window. "It looks appealing," Eri said as she pointed towards the window. Izuku agreed, noting how stunning it was. Eri then asked what it was called, and Izuku explained that it was called space. Curious, Eri wondered why it was named that, to which Izuku replied that it looked very empty. Eri was fascinated by the vastness of space as she stared out the window. Izuku pointed out the shiny dots in the sky, explaining they were stars, and Eri admired their beauty. As they continued to gaze at the stars, Izuku mentioned that the girls could explain things better than he could. He then asked Eri where they were, and she pointed down the hallway, indicating she had seen them go that way. Izuku guessed they had gone to the guest room and suggested Eri explore the place a bit while he checked on the girls. Eri happily agreed and ran off. Izuku walked down the hallway towards the guest room and noticed the door was open. Upon entering, he found the girls sitting on the bed, engrossed in a show on TV. They quickly noticed him and jumped up to greet him. Mika expressed her relief that he was okay and hugged him tightly, while Kyoka asked if he was hurt. Izuku reassured them that he was fine and returned their hugs. Mika mentioned that they had seen what happened on the news and were worried. Kyoka brought up what he had done to Endeavor, prompting Izuku to rub the back of his head and apologize. Mika questioned his thought process, and Kyoka asked what he meant when he called Endeavor a faker. Izuku decided it was time to explain, sitting down on the bed to share his thoughts. He explained that the reason he called Endeavor a faker should be obvious, and Kyoka speculated that he meant Endeavor was a fake hero. Izuku confirmed this, and Mika asked how he had found out. He indicated that he needed to show them something and stood up, asking them to follow him. He led them to a room in the hallway, opening the door to reveal a dark space. Kyoka commented on the darkness, and Izuku went to turn on the lights. The room was cluttered with photos and files about heroes and other individuals. Izuku explained that this was where he conducted his research to uncover the truth about heroes, picking up a paper from the floor to emphasize his point. He stated that Endeavor was indeed a faker and went to a file cabinet to retrieve a file that would clarify their questions. He handed the file to Mika and mentioned he needed to clean up, reminding them to close the door when they left. As he exited, Mika opened the file, revealing a photo of Endeavor. Together, they read about his abusive behavior towards his family, including how he had trained his youngest son, Shoto Todoroki, harshly and sent his wife, Rei, to a mental hospital after a breakdown. They learned that Endeavor had continued to push Shoto to become the strongest hero, surpassing All Might. Shocked by the revelations, Kyoka remarked on how messed up it was, and Mika expressed that no child should endure such pain. They wondered how Izuku had discovered this information and decided to wait for him to return. Later, Izuku was sitting on the bed with Eri, Mika, and Kyoka, watching TV when he received a text from Ryukyu. The message read that they needed to talk. Concerned, he got off the bed, catching the attention of Mika and Kyoka. When they asked if something was wrong, Izuku explained that Ryukyu wanted to talk and began to leave the room. Mika reminded him not to take too long. Once in his investigation room, Izuku closed the door and called Ryukyu. After a moment, she answered, expressing her frustration about his actions. Izuku acknowledged what he had done, and Ryukyu reminded him that he had killed the number 2 hero. Izuku remained unfazed, explaining that he was not worried about it. Ryukyu insisted that they knew what he looked like and that as a hero, she couldn't support his actions. Izuku argued that he had to do things his way, which involved eliminating those he deemed fakers. Ryukyu, feeling conflicted, stated that she couldn't be with someone who killed. Izuku was taken aback, trying to understand her decision. She expressed her feelings for him but felt it was wrong to be with someone who took lives. Before he could explain himself, she hung up, leaving Izuku standing there, stunned. As he processed what had just happened, tears began to fall down his cheeks. He wiped his eyes and picked up his phone, realizing the gravity of the situation. Feeling defeated, he left the investigation room and returned to the girls, finding Eri asleep. Kyoka noticed his upset demeanor and asked what Ryukyu wanted to talk about. Mika expressed concern, noting that he looked like he had been crying. Izuku insisted he was fine but just tired. They decided it was time to rest, and Izuku joined them on the bed, cradling Eri against his chest while the girls cuddled close. Kyoka inquired about his conversation with Ryukyu, but Izuku dismissed it as unimportant, saying she was just checking on him. Kyoka kissed him on the cheek, wishing him good night, and Mika followed suit. Izuku returned their good night, holding the girls close as they drifted off to sleep. Meanwhile, Ryukyu lay in her bed, still awake and tearful. She felt conflicted about her feelings for Izuku and her duty as a hero. Though she believed she had made the right choice, doubt lingered in her mind. She whispered an apology to Izuku, hoping he would understand, before closing her eyes and eventually falling asleep. As he stared at Endeavor's lifeless body, covered by a large white cloth, Hawks felt a wave of confusion wash over him. The heroes and others had already left, as it was getting late, but for some reason, Endeavor's family had not arrived. Hawks pondered to himself, questioning the circumstances surrounding Endeavor's death. He thought about how, despite Endeavor's harsh demeanor, he didn't deserve such a fate. What could have led to this tragic outcome? Determined to find answers, Hawks resolved to seek out Midoriya, believing that if he had any involvement in Endeavor's demise, he might hold the key to understanding why it happened. As he opened the door to leave, a hint of apprehension crossed his mind. He considered the possibility that Midoriya could pose a threat to him as well. With a deep breath, he stepped out, hoping that the risk would be worth it. Meanwhile, Izuku was immersed in his investigation room, focused on a group of drag dealers. He was close to uncovering their hideout but had hit a roadblock. As he examined a clipboard filled with photos and connected strings of yarn, an idea sparked in his mind. If he could locate a specific individual, he could potentially lead himself to the hideout. With renewed determination, Izuku left the investigation room and made his way to the living room, where he called out to Vega for assistance. Vega responded promptly, ready to help. Izuku asked if Vega could locate a certain target, and although Vega confirmed it was possible, he cautioned that it would take some time. Grateful for the support, Izuku settled onto the couch, rubbing his eyes and letting out a weary sigh. Vega noticed Izuku's stress and remarked on it, prompting Izuku to deny feeling overwhelmed. Vega, however, saw through the facade, insisting that Izuku was not being truthful. "How can you tell?" Vega observed that as soon as Izuku sat down, he rubbed his eyes and let out a big sigh, which usually indicated that he was stressed. Izuku admitted that he had no proof of that. Vega, being an AI, confidently stated that he knew everything. Izuku reluctantly acknowledged that he might be a bit stressed. Vega then suggested that Izuku spend time with his daughter, noting that he hadn't been around her much lately. Izuku realized he hadn't spent enough time with Eri and decided he should. As he walked away to find Eri, he entered the guest room and found her watching cartoons. He greeted her and asked how she was doing. Eri responded cheerfully, and Izuku expressed his happiness to hear that. He then suggested they spend the day together, to which Eri excitedly reacted with a hug. Izuku asked what she wanted to do, and Eri proposed a game of hide and seek. Izuku agreed, telling her to go hide while he counted. Eri jumped off the bed and ran out, reminding him not to peek. As he counted, Eri searched for a good hiding spot, contemplating various options in the living room. After some thought, she decided to hide in a spot she believed would keep her hidden from her father. Izuku entered the room, looking around for her. He wondered if she had gone to one of the other rooms when he heard her giggling. He turned to find her hanging from the chandelier, and he playfully acknowledged that he had found her. Eri protested that it wasn't fair, and when he asked how she got up there, she sheepishly admitted she forgot. Izuku told her to jump down, promising to catch her. Eri jumped, and he caught her, but they both landed on the couch, bouncing slightly before settling down with Eri in his arms. She laughed and suggested they do it again, but Izuku suggested they take a break. Eri then declared it was Izuku's turn to hide, and he instructed her to count in the room. As she counted, he searched for a hiding spot, feeling the pressure as she approached. He found a less than ideal spot and settled in. Eri soon began her search and quickly spotted him, staring at him with a knowing look. Izuku admitted she had found him, and Eri playfully pointed out that he wasn't very good at the game. He explained that it was hard for someone his size to find a good hiding spot, but Eri reassured him that it was okay since he tried. After their game, Eri took Izuku's hand and led him back to the guest room, where she excitedly revealed a box of markers and sheets of paper. She suggested they draw together, and Izuku agreed, settling onto the bed as Eri jumped up beside him. They began to draw, enjoying their time together. Meanwhile, Hawks stood in front of the Todoroki home, wondering why they hadn't shown up at the hospital. He thought they might have been busy and decided to check on them to ensure they were okay. As he approached the door, he knocked and was greeted by Fuyumi, who smiled at him, catching him off guard. She introduced herself, and Hawks confirmed he was indeed working with her father. Fuyumi asked what brought him there, and Hawks expressed his condolences for their loss, acknowledging how hard it must be for them. To his surprise, Fuyumi explained that they weren't upset at all. In fact, they were grateful that the Doomslayer had taken care of Endeavor. Hawks was taken aback, struggling to understand her calm demeanor about her father's death. Fuyumi suggested they talk inside since it was cold outside, and Hawks agreed. Once inside, Fuyumi invited him to sit in the living room and offered him a drink. He requested a cup of water while he looked around, noticing the quietness of the house. He asked if she was the only one there, and she confirmed that her brothers had gone to get their mother from the mental hospital. Hawks was curious about why their mother was there, and Fuyumi explained that it was due to their father's actions, specifically an incident involving Shoto. Hawks listened, surprised by the revelations about the Todoroki family. "But why do you hate him so much?" he asked as Fuyumi entered the living room with a cup of water. Fuyumi explained that the reason they despised their father was due to the abuse they suffered since childhood. Hawks was taken aback, expressing his shock at the revelation. Fuyumi continued, detailing how their father had threatened their lives if they ever spoke out, just as he had done to their older brother, Toya, who had tragically passed away. Hawks was horrified to learn that Endeavor had been responsible for Toya's death. Fuyumi shared that their father viewed them as expendable, except for Shoto, whom he wanted to surpass All Might. Shoto had admired All Might since childhood, which only fueled Endeavor's resentment. Whenever Fuyumi, her brother, or their mother tried to intervene during Shoto's training, Endeavor would retaliate against them. Hawks expressed his sorrow for their suffering, and Fuyumi reassured him that it was not his fault. No one had known. Hawks acknowledged that with Endeavor gone, they were finally free. Fuyumi expressed gratitude towards the Doomslayer, wishing they could thank him but not knowing his whereabouts. Hawks mentioned he had been searching for the Doomslayer to understand why he had killed Endeavor, but now he understood the truth. Fuyumi was relieved they were on the same page, and Hawks decided it was time for him to leave, despite Fuyumi's invitation to stay for tea. He joked about heroes never resting and assured her he would be fine. As he prepared to leave, he asked her to say hello to her family for him, adding a light-hearted comment about Endeavor before finally departing. Meanwhile, Hawks received a call from Aizawa, urgently instructing him to come to a specific location where the Doomslayer was found. Hawks quickly took off, stretching his wings and soaring through the air at high speeds. In another scene, Izuku and Eri had just finished their drawings. Eri excitedly showed Izuku her artwork, a sketch of them holding hands with smiles. Izuku praised her talent, and Eri was equally impressed with his drawing. They shared a warm hug, with Izuku expressing his unwavering support for her, no matter what happened. Eri fell asleep with her drawing in hand, and Izuku carefully laid her on the bed, tucking her in and placing her artwork on the desk. He felt incredibly lucky to have her in his life. As Izuku prepared to leave the room, Vega informed him that they had located the person he was searching for. Startled, Izuku thanked Vega for the assistance and geared up in his armor, ready to confront the situation ahead. Outside, two thugs were playing Uno in front of a building. Their game was interrupted when they heard a noise from the alley. One thug reluctantly went to investigate, only to be confronted by Izuku, who swiftly incapacitated him. The other thug, realizing the danger, attempted to negotiate, suggesting a game of Uno as a way to avoid confrontation. "If I win, you let me and my friend go, deal?" Izuku reluctantly agreed as he set his shotgun down. The thug, surprised by the response, thought to himself that he hadn't expected Izuku to accept. They both sat down and began an exciting game of Uno. After some time, Izuku emerged victorious, leaving the thug visibly shaken. Before the thug could express his frustration, Izuku swiftly grabbed him by the neck and slammed him through the table. The thug groaned in pain as he lost consciousness. Izuku stepped over the fallen thug, remarking on his poor skills at Uno. He opened the front door, noting the darkness inside, and ventured further in. He pondered if his target might be upstairs and made his way up. Upon reaching the second floor, he spotted a room with its light on. Izuku approached and kicked the door open, revealing a group of thugs engrossed in a poker game. They all turned to stare at him in surprise. Then, chaos erupted as they shouted for him to be apprehended. Izuku dashed forward, landing a punch on one thug's face. Suddenly, another thug leaped onto Izuku from behind, while another swung a chair at him, shattering it against his back. Izuku quickly retaliated, grabbing the thug behind him and slamming him into one of his companions. Another thug attempted to kick Izuku, but he caught the leg and lifted the thug off the ground, body slamming him onto the table. With only one thug remaining, they exchanged wary glances. The thug, sensing defeat, stammered that he would just leave. Izuku charged at him, tackling him through the wall. As the thug struggled beneath him, he threw punches in a desperate attempt to escape, but Izuku caught his fist and immobilized him. The thug cried out in pain, conceding defeat. Izuku released him, and the thug clutched his injured hand as he rolled on the floor. Izuku demanded to know where his target was, and the thug, trembling, revealed that he was upstairs, pleading for his life as he crawled away. Thanking the thug, Izuku approached and knocked him out with a decisive move. He then made his way to the stairs, spotting a door with light streaming through the cracks. Izuku walked over and kicked it open, confronting his target, who was armed with a shotgun. "I will shoot you, I swear," he thought as he aimed his shotgun at Izuku. Izuku ignored the warning and walked toward his target. The man fired at Izuku, but the bullets had no effect. As Izuku closed the distance, the man continued to shoot, but Izuku remained undeterred. Once close enough, Izuku swiftly grabbed the shotgun from the man's hands and struck him with it. The man fell to the floor, and Izuku tossed the shotgun aside. Izuku declared that the man would answer every question he asked, warning that if he was wrong, he would break one of his fingers. He grabbed the man and dragged him out of the room. The man struggled to break free, but Izuku responded with a swift strike to his head, commanding him to stop. They reached the rooftop, and Izuku lifted the man over the edge. The man pleaded for his life, holding onto Izuku's arm, begging him not to drop him. Izuku demanded information in exchange for his safety. The man, terrified, quickly revealed the location of a group of drag dealers. Izuku, satisfied with the information, contemplated his next move, recalling Ryukyu's words from their last conversation about not wanting to be with someone who killed. As Izuku pondered, the man nervously asked if he could be let go. With a sigh, Izuku decided against it, throwing the man back onto the roof. He warned him that if he ever caught him involved in such activities again, he would find him and ensure he faced dire consequences. The man, trembling, agreed, trying to crawl away. To ensure compliance, Izuku grabbed his leg and, without hesitation, broke it. The man screamed in pain, clutching his injured limb. Izuku warned him that he would face worse if he broke his promise. The man, now crying, swore he would not. Izuku delivered a final kick to the man's face, knocking him out. Just as he was about to leave, someone landed behind him. Aizawa stood there, staring at Izuku, declaring that he was under arrest for the murder of Endeavor. Using his quirk, Aizawa launched his scarf at Izuku, who effortlessly cut it in half, surprising Izuku but not stopping his advance. Izuku charged at Izuku, landing a kick to his head, which Izuku blocked before attempting to punch Izuku. Izuku ducked and retaliated with a kick to Izuku's stomach. Izuku caught Izuku's leg and threw him aside. Izuku rolled on the ground but quickly regained his footing, acknowledging Izuku's speed. Izuku complimented Izuku's strength, especially with his quirk, prompting Izuku to question how Izuku knew his name. Izuku claimed to know a lot about him, and Izuku, loosening his scarf, acknowledged that it seemed so. Izuku then revealed that Izuku's quirk was ineffective against him, stating that he was quirkless. Before Izuku could react, Izuku grabbed him and slammed him to the ground. Izuku managed to slip out of Izuku's grasp and pushed him away. Izuku attempted to stomp on Izuku's chest, but Izuku rolled out of the way. Izuku then kicked the back of Izuku's leg, causing him to kneel. Izuku followed up with a kick to Izuku's head, gaining the upper hand. Izuku realized he needed to adapt, deciding to let Izuku strike first and then counter. Izuku charged again, aiming a kick at Izuku's face, but Izuku countered, grabbing Izuku by the neck and walking him toward the edge. Holding Izuku over the side, Izuku remarked that he was sure Izuku would survive the fall, given his status as a hero, before throwing him off the edge. As Izuku looked over the side, he was confident Izuku would be fine and left the scene. Below, Izuku managed to grab his scarf, which was tied around a pole, and muttered to himself that he needed to call Hawks. Later, Izuku arrived at the docks, perched atop a building, observing a group of thugs engaged in a deal. He thought to himself that he could take out 2 targets at once as he prepared to interrupt their meeting. One thug confirmed the deal, but before it could be finalized, Izuku landed on one of them, knocking him out with a powerful stomp. Chaos erupted as another thug shouted for his comrades to kill Izuku. One thug, with arms transforming into blades, charged at him, but Izuku dodged the attack. Another thug, frustrated, demanded Izuku hold still. Izuku caught the blade and broke it off, causing the thug to scream in pain as he clutched his injured arm. Izuku retaliated with a kick that snapped the thug's leg backward, sending him to the ground. 2 more thugs approached, one with skin turning to metal, who attempted to punch Izuku. Izuku caught the fist and slammed the thug onto the bladed thug. The other thug jumped onto Izuku's back, trying to burn him, but Izuku swiftly broke the thug's arm over his shoulder. Another thug charged at Izuku, but he turned and threw the broken blade into the thug's knee, causing him to collapse. The metal-skinned thug recovered and attempted to punch Izuku from behind, but Izuku ducked and executed a powerful chokeslam, sending the thug crashing to the ground. Thug with a broken arm lay on the ground. Another thug pulled out a gun and aimed at Izuku, but his aim was as poor as a stormtrooper's. Izuku approached the thug, took the gun from his hand, and struck him with it. The other 2 thugs rushed at Izuku, while the metal thug got back up. Izuku charged at the 2 thugs as one of them fired at him. The bullets bounced harmlessly off his armor as he clotheslined the shooter. The remaining thug pulled a pipe from nowhere and swung it at Izuku's head, but Izuku barely felt the impact. He turned to face the thug with the pipe, who swung again, only for Izuku to catch it. He yanked the pipe from the thug's grip and swung it at his leg, causing the thug to fall to the ground, clutching his knee in pain. As the thug writhed on the floor, the metal thug charged at Izuku, throwing a punch. Izuku dodged to the side and struck the thug in the face with the pipe, sending him stumbling back. The shooter attempted to get back up and flee, but Izuku noticed him. He threw the pipe, hitting the thug in the back and knocking him out. Izuku then turned his attention to the last standing thug, who faced him defiantly. The thug shouted in anger as he charged at Izuku with a bat. He swung wildly, but his attacks had no effect on Izuku. In a final desperate move, the thug swung with all his might, only for the bat to snap in half. The thug cursed as he saw Izuku approaching him. With one last attempt to harm Izuku, he threw the broken bat at Izuku's face, but it bounced off harmlessly. Izuku closed the distance and stomped on the thug's leg, causing him to collapse in pain. The thug looked up at Izuku in disbelief, questioning what he was. Izuku remained silent and, without hesitation, stomped on the thug's head, knocking him out. The fight seemed over, and Izuku took a deep breath, but just as he thought it was finished, another thug charged at him. The metal thug tackled Izuku to the ground, unleashing a flurry of punches. Izuku blocked most of the attacks, but one punch landed, slightly cracking his eyewear. Frustrated, Izuku caught the thug's fist and retaliated with a punch to the face, pushing him off. With some space, Izuku kicked the thug in the chest, sending him crashing to the floor. Izuku stood up, feeling exasperated. He grabbed the thug by his shirt and lifted him to his feet, unleashing a series of blows. Once he was done, he threw the thug aside and scanned the area, ensuring the fight was truly over. He thought to himself about the situation as he approached a trunk of a car, where he spotted drags. Pulling out a small device, he pressed a button and tossed it into the trunk before closing it. As he walked away, the device exploded, engulfing the drags and the car in flames. Feeling satisfied, Izuku thought about getting some rest as he began to leave the scene. Suddenly, a feather flew by and stuck into the ground. Hawks descended, holding Aizawa, and both heroes took in the sight of the beaten thugs and the burning car. Hawks remarked on the condition of the thugs, impressed by the damage Izuku had inflicted. Izuku, wary, asked what Hawks wanted, warning him that he wouldn't hesitate to fight if necessary, as he reached for his shotgun. Hawks quickly raised his hands, urging Izuku to wait. "We don't want to fight," he said, raising his hands in surrender. Hawks added that they just wanted to talk. Izuku, still on guard but willing to listen, inquired about their intentions. Aizawa approached him, explaining that they wanted to offer him a choice. He noted that everyone Izuku had taken down was not innocent. Hawks chimed in, particularly mentioning Endeavor and his actions against his family. Izuku was surprised to learn that they knew about Endeavor's past. Hawks revealed that he initially sought Izuku to understand why he had taken Endeavor down, but he discovered the truth when he spoke to the Todoroki family. Izuku lowered his guard, acknowledging their understanding. Aizawa expressed that while they recognized Izuku's good intentions, his current methods were not the right way. Hawks proposed that they wanted to give him a chance to be a hero alongside them. Izuku pondered the idea of being a hero, admitting he had given up on that dream long ago but agreed to think about it. Hawks assured him that they could wait, while Aizawa handed Izuku a piece of paper with his number, urging him to call once he had made a decision. Izuku promised he would and then ran off. Hawks questioned whether Izuku was too old to be a student, to which Aizawa clarified that he was 16. Hawks was astonished that they had been bested by someone so young, and Aizawa added that Izuku was quirkless, leaving Hawks feeling embarrassed. Aizawa suggested they tie up the criminals, and Hawks agreed, expressing his belief that Izuku would be fun to be around. Later, Izuku was sitting on the couch with Eri, watching TV. He was struggling to stay awake, and Eri noticed his fatigue. She asked what was wrong, and he reassured her that he was just tired. Eri admitted she was a little tired too, prompting Izuku to suggest they get some sleep. He turned off the TV, picked Eri up in his arms, and asked if that sounded nice. She agreed, resting her head on his chest as he smiled and gently petted her head. Once in his room, he closed the door and turned off the lights. They snuggled under the blanket, and Izuku wished Eri good night, to which she replied before they both fell asleep. The next day, Izuku walked down the street with a mask covering his face and a black hoodie to conceal his hair. With heroes now aware of his appearance, he needed to hide his identity. Despite Aizawa and Hawks offering him a place at UA, he remained uncertain about accepting. He found himself in a store searching for a candy apple. As he struggled to locate it, a woman with long white hair noticed his predicament. She asked if he needed help, and he confirmed he was looking for candy apples. She informed him that they didn't sell them, only the ingredients. Grateful, he introduced himself, and she revealed her name was Rei Todoroki, smiling softly. While they conversed, a commotion outside caught their attention. Izuku asked what was happening, and Rei speculated it sounded angry. She moved toward the noise, and Izuku followed, concerned. They soon reached the front of the store, where a thief was aiming a gun at the cashier, demanding money. The thief fired a shot into the air, startling everyone except Izuku, who remained unfazed. He thought about the potential danger and decided he needed to intervene. As he approached, Rei whispered for him to stop, worried for his safety. He reassured her that he had faced worse challenges before letting go of her hand and stepping forward, leaving her anxious yet intrigued. Izuku stealthily approached the thief, who was distracted by the cashier. However, a noise from a rack of cans alerted the thief, who turned to confront Izuku. The thief ordered him to stop and aim the gun at him. Izuku calmly raised his hands, trying to defuse the situation. The thief demanded to know why he was wearing a mask and hoodie, insisting he take them off. Izuku refused, and the thief threatened to shoot someone else if he didn't comply, aiming at Rei. Reluctantly, Izuku stepped in front of the gun, beginning to reveal his identity. As he removed his hood, Rei recognized his distinctive green hair. When he took off his mask, the crowd gasped, realizing who he was. The thief stammered, recognizing Izuku as the one who had taken down Endeavor. Izuku warned the thief that he wouldn't hesitate to do the same to him. The thief, now frightened, backed away until he bumped into the cashier counter, trembling. Just as the thief was about to pull the trigger, the cashier seized the opportunity to put him in a headlock, allowing Izuku to disarm him. With the thief subdued, Izuku broke the gun and looked down at the now unconscious criminal. He thanked the cashier, who nervously smiled and gave him a thumbs up. Izuku asked if anyone had called the police, and a citizen confirmed they were on their way. He then inquired if anyone had something to tie up the thief, and another citizen produced some rope, explaining he had brought it for a mountain trip. Izuku tied up the thief and prepared to leave, pulling his hood back over his head and begins to leave. Rei calls out to Izuku, but he has already left the store. Determined, she thinks to herself that she needs to catch up with him quickly. As she rushes out, the cashier tries to stop her, but she is already gone. The cashier shrugs and waits for the police to arrive. Meanwhile, Izuku walks down the sidewalk, lost in thought. He reflects on Rei, Endeavor's wife, and feels a sense of relief for having saved her family from a terrible man. A small smile forms on his face. Suddenly, he hears footsteps behind him and turns to see Rei running toward him. She shouts for him to wait, and he wonders how she manages to run in high heels. Just as he thinks this, she trips. He quickly reacts and catches her before she falls. Rei opens her eyes to find herself in Izuku's arms. He asks if she is okay, and she stammers, momentarily distracted by the strength she feels through his jacket. She quickly regains her composure, stands up, and thanks him for saving her. A blush spreads across her face. Izuku responds with a polite acknowledgement and starts to walk away, but Rei grabs his hand, asking if he is the Doom Slayer. He confirms this, worried that she might be angry about her husband's fate. Before he can finish his thought, she surprises him by hugging him tightly, expressing her gratitude. Izuku, taken aback by her warmth, hugs her back, gently running his fingers through her hair. Rei feels comforted by his touch, closing her eyes and smiling softly. Realizing he has held her for too long, Izuku apologizes and lets her go. She reassures him that it's okay, still blushing. As he prepares to leave, Izuku suddenly remembers that he forgot to buy candy apples for his daughter, Eri. He imagines her disappointment, feeling like he has failed as a father. Noticing his distress, Rei asks if he is all right. He explains that he was trying to get candy apples for Eri, who wanted to try one but knows he can't cook. Rei offers to help him make candy apples, sharing that she has children of her own and would love to assist. Izuku hesitates, not wanting to be a bother, but Rei insists it's the least she can do after what happened with her husband. Reluctantly, he agrees, and Rei claps her hands in excitement, saying she has the ingredients at her house. They walk side by side to the Todoroki residence. Once they arrive, Rei unlocks the door and asks Izuku to take off his shoes and hang up his jacket. She heads to the kitchen to prepare the ingredients while he makes himself comfortable. As he removes his shoes, he notices a white cat watching him. He crouches down to pet the cat, whispering that he won't hurt it. The cat hesitates but eventually allows him to pet it, purring softly. Izuku picks up the cat and carries it into the kitchen, where he finds Rei in an apron, ready to make candy apples. Rei recognizes the cat and smiles, saying it seems to like him. Izuku shares that he likes the cat too and puts it down. She hands him an apron, and they begin their candy apple-making adventure. After some time, They finish making the candy apples and they look delicious. Rei admires their work, while Izuku notices he has made quite a mess. She asks how he got so messy, and he shrugs, attempting to clean his shirt but only making it worse. Rei offers to wash it, and after a moment of hesitation, he agrees. As she wraps up the candy apples, Izuku, with his back turned, starts to remove his shirt to give it to her. When Rei turns around, she is taken aback by his muscular build and the scars that tell stories of battles fought. She feels a mix of concern and admiration, her face flushing as she stares at him. Izuku notices her reaction and asks if she is okay, resting his hand on her forehead. Flustered, Rei insists she is fine and shyly asks for his shirt, extending her hand. Izuku places his shirt in her hand, feeling a sense of warmth in the moment. Izuku ran out of the kitchen, flustered and confused. He glanced at Snowball, who simply liked its paw and meowed. Meanwhile, Rei was putting her shirt in the washing machine along with her apron. As the machine whirred, she leaned against the wall, covering her face with her hands, feeling overwhelmed. She thought to herself about how close she had come to fainting and wondered why Izuku was so handsome. Sliding down to the floor, she sat there, her hand covering her mouth as her blush began to fade. Concern for Izuku crept into her mind as she noticed his scars and wondered what had happened to him. Her thoughts were interrupted when the washing machine stopped. She got up, transferred the clothes to the dryer, and decided she should check on Izuku. As she walked into the living room, she noticed him sitting on the couch, staring at the floor. She hesitated before speaking, letting him know that his shirt would be finished soon. An awkward silence filled the room as she tried to think of something to say. Rei mentioned that she realized she never asked for his name. He replied that his name was Izuku, and she acknowledged it, feeling the weight of the silence again. She asked if he had ever cooked before, to which he replied that he had once cooked with his girlfriend. The mood shifted as he revealed that they no longer talked, and he looked upset. Rei expressed her sympathy, not knowing the full story. Izuku shared that she had been upset about something he had done, and he felt like a monster for it. Rei quickly reassured him that he was not a monster, scooting closer to him. She held his hands and insisted that just because he had done something bad, it didn't define who he was. She gently turned his face towards hers, affirming that he was her hero. In a moment of courage, she leaned in and kissed him. Izuku's eyes widened in surprise, but he soon returned the kiss, and the two shared a tender moment, both feeling a rush of emotions. As they pulled away, Rei felt embarrassed and apologized, but Izuku reassured her that it was okay. He admitted that he hadn't expected it either. They shared another kiss, and Rei felt warmth spread through her as they continued to explore their feelings for each other. Izuku gently laid Rei back, brushing a strand of hair from her face. They exchanged soft words and playful touches, each feeling more comfortable with the other. As they shared more kisses, the atmosphere became charged with affection. Izuku complimented her, and she blushed, feeling shy yet happy. The two continued to share NTMT moments, each lost in the connection they were building. They were both aware of the depth of their feelings and the bond they were forming, feeling a sense of comfort and safety in each other's presence. Who was out of breath as she stared at him. He approached her and shared a passionate kiss. She closed her eyes as he gently engaged with her. Breaking the kiss, he got off the bed and took hold of her legs, pulling her closer until her waist rested at the edge. He reached for her breaths, beginning to remove them as she straightened her legs. Izuku felt a rush of warmth as he noticed her flushed cheeks. She was lost in her own sensations, and he couldn't help but think about the sweetness of her presence. Just as she was about to lose herself once more, she wrapped her legs around him, pulling him closer. Izuku's shoulder brushed against Rei as she fell back onto the bed. He slowly stepped back, wiping his face with the blanket. Realizing what had happened, Rei weakly sat up to check on Izuku. She asked if he was okay, her voice filled with concern. Izuku nodded, reassuring her with a small smile. He gently told her it was all right and added that she had a sweet scent, which caught her off guard and made her blush. As she processed his words, Izuku stretched and picked up her shirt from the floor. He mentioned that the clothes were done washing, prompting Rei to remember her own attire. She put on her shirt, forgetting to wear a BR, which made her feel a bit self-conscious. Noticing her disappointment, Izuku hugged her from behind and asked what was wrong. "You seem upset." Rei felt a blush creep onto her face as she expressed her feelings, wishing they had gone all the way. Izuku noticed her discomfort and asked if she was pleased. Rei hesitated, her cheeks flushed, and admitted that she was, but not entirely. Izuku understood her feelings and, in a tender moment, kissed her neck from behind. Rei responded with a soft sound of surprise, holding his cheek as he continued to kiss her. Izuku reassured her that he would make sure she was satisfied. He gently turned her around and lifted her up, laying her on the bed. As he prepared for the moment, Rei's heart raced, her cheeks still warm as she gazed at him. Izuku climbed onto the bed, holding her waist, and began to explore their connection further. Rei could tell that Izuku was still worried about her, so she gently broke the kiss. She rested her arms on his shoulders and reassured him, saying that he didn't have to worry and that she would be fine. Izuku slowly nodded his head, though he still seemed concerned. As he began to move, Rei let out a soft sound in response. Each movement made her react, and she held onto the blanket tightly as Izuku continued. Her reactions grew louder, and he started to pick up the pace. Rei called out his name, her back arching as she felt the intensity of the moment. Izuku slid his hands to her back, pulling her closer, and he held her waist while kissing her neck. She responded with a soft sound, holding his head against her neck as he continued to kiss her. As he moved down her neck to her collarbone, he paused, savoring the moment. Rei leaned forward, playfully pushing Izuku back. She broke the kiss and sat up, feeling the rush of excitement. With her eyes closed, she felt Izuku's hands on hers, helping her maintain her balance as she leaned forward. She could see his expression as she moved, and it filled her with a sense of exhilaration. Rei expressed her feelings, saying she was close to reaching a peak. Izuku shared her sentiment, feeling the intensity build between them. They both felt the moment approaching, and Rei prepared for what was to come. Izuku noticed her determination and felt a wave of concern, worried that she might hurt herself. Before he could voice his worries, she made a decisive move, and the moment escalated, leaving them both breathless. Afterward, Rei fell against Izuku's chest, breathing heavily. He gently shook her shoulder, concerned for her well-being. When he looked at her face, he saw that she had fallen asleep with a satisfied smile. Relieved, he decided to pull away but noticed her wince in her sleep, prompting him to pause. Izuku realized he would be there for a while, so he covered them both with a blanket, pulling Rei closer to him and kissing her forehead. She smiled in her sleep, snuggling against his neck. As he contemplated calling his dad, he suddenly remembered that he had left his phone on the dresser. He grabbed it and noticed a note on it that read, "To Izuku, hey, you don't know me, but I know you, and I am the person who kind of brought this universe to life. We'll get to that another time. I noticed you forgot your phone in your breathes, so I did you a favor and put it on the desk while you weren't looking." Izuku woke up in bed with Rei cuddling beside him. He looked down at her and smiled softly as he gently petted her head. She smiled warmly and nuzzled her head against his chest. Izuku lay back, gazing at the ceiling, lost in thought. He glanced toward his phone and picked it up from the countertop, recalling the offer Aizawa and Hawks had given him. He wondered if he should accept it and placed his phone back on the countertop. Carefully, he lifted Rei off of him and laid her down gently, trying not to wake her. He quietly got off the bed and began to get dressed, realizing he couldn't find his shirt. Remembering that Rei had put it in the dryer, he left the room to search for it. As Izuku searched for his shirt, Rei slowly woke up, her hair tousled. She sat up and rubbed her eyes, using her blanket to cover herself. Looking around the room, she noticed Izuku's phone on the countertop, confirming he was still there. She attempted to get up but found her legs unresponsive. Confused, she recalled what she and Izuku had done the previous night and felt a blush rise to her cheeks. She whispered to herself in disbelief, hiding her face under the blanket. Just then, Izuku returned, fully dressed, and noticed that Rei was awake. He approached her and greeted her with a warm smile. Rei returned the greeting, her cheeks flushing as she looked at him. Concerned, Izuku asked if she was okay, gently moving her hair out of her face. She assured him she was fine, though her blush deepened as she admitted she couldn't move her legs. Izuku offered to help her, and she shyly accepted his assistance. He nodded, removed the blanket, and picked her up in a bridal carry. Rei felt her cheeks heat up as she noticed his strength through his shirt. Izuku asked if she wanted to take a bath first, and she nodded in response as he carried her to the bathroom. After some time, Rei sat on the couch, fully clothed. Izuku checked in on her, asking if she would be okay as he prepared to leave. She thanked him for his help, a small blush still on her face. Izuku wrote something on a piece of paper and handed it to her, instructing her to call him if she needed anything. Rei promised she would, smiling warmly at him. He leaned down and kissed her forehead, causing her blush to deepen, but she smiled back at the gesture. As he left, he petted her head and told her he would see her later. Watching him go, Rei felt a smile spread across her face, reflecting on how sweet he was despite his reputation. Meanwhile, Izuku walked down the street, wearing a hoodie and a mask to conceal his identity. He began to think about the offer again. Now that he was in a relationship with multiple girls, he realized he needed help protecting them, especially his daughter, Eri. He decided it was time to call Aizawa. In another location, Aizawa was still asleep when his phone rang, interrupting his rest. Groggily, he answered, sounding irritated. Upon recognizing Izuku's voice, he rubbed his eyes to wake up fully. Aizawa asked if this meant Izuku had accepted the offer, to which Izuku confirmed, adding that he had a few requests if he joined. Aizawa listened as Izuku expressed his need for someone to help protect his daughter. Aizawa was surprised but acknowledged that he knew someone good with kids. Izuku inquired about when he could start, and Aizawa promised to call him the next day with details. They discussed clothing sizes, and Aizawa sighed, realizing he had to guess Izuku's size. After wrapping up the call, Aizawa rubbed his face, feeling the weight of the day ahead. Throughout the day, Izuku spent quality time with Eri, making up for his absence the day before. Eri was happy to be with her father. Currently, Izuku walked down the halls of UA alongside Aizawa, who had managed to find the right size for Izuku's UA uniform. As they walked, students of UA stared in shock, recognizing the infamous figure. Whispers circulated about Izuku's past, with some students discussing how he had taken down a notorious hero who had abused his family. Curious about how the students knew about Endeavor, Izuku looked to Aizawa, who explained that Hawks had spoken to the Todoroki family and uncovered some hidden truths. They reached Class 1A, and Aizawa instructed Izuku to wait outside while he entered. As Aizawa stepped inside, the class quieted down, sensing his presence. He acknowledged their silence and prepared to introduce the new student. As he began to speak, a student named Ilda interrupted, but Aizawa swiftly silenced him with a glare. Once the class settled, Aizawa called for Izuku to come in. As the door opened, Bakugo recognized Izuku, his expression shifting as he processed the situation. "Wait a minute. Don't tell me it's..." He looked towards the door and saw Izuku walk through. He was quite big and muscular, and everyone stared at him in shock. Class 1A, except for Bakugo and Kyoka, exclaimed in disbelief, recognizing him as the Doomslayer. Bakugo shouted, surprised to see Deku, while Kyoka rushed up to Izuku, calling out his name. Izuku greeted them with a wave, and Kyoka hugged him tightly. She asked why he hadn't told her he was joining UA. Izuku explained that he wanted it to be a surprise, returning her hug and gently petting her head. Mina, astonished, asked if Kyoka knew the Doomslayer. Kyoka proudly confirmed that they were dating, nuzzling against Izuku's chest. The rest of Class 1A was taken aback, never expecting Kyoka to be in a relationship with the one who had taken down Endeavor. Kirishima, amazed by Izuku's physique, asked how he got so muscular. Izuku replied that it was due to life-threatening training. Kirishima admired him, introducing himself with enthusiasm and extending his fist for a bump, which Izuku reciprocated. They exchanged friendly words, with Kirishima expressing his hope to become the manliest of friends. As everyone began introducing themselves to Izuku, Bakugo remained distant, clearly uninterested, while Shoto felt nervous about approaching him. After all, Izuku had taken down Endeavor, Shoto's father, and he was unsure how to introduce himself. Aizawa then instructed everyone to return to their seats, noting that Izuku would have to share a desk for now. Kyoka took his hand and led him to her desk, where she jumped onto his lap, cuddling against him. Izuku held her gently, rubbing her shoulder as Aizawa began the day's assignment. During the lesson, Kyoka took notes in her journal while Izuku did the same. Eventually, the bell rang, and Aizawa announced that since Izuku was new, someone would need to show him around. The class agreed, and Aizawa settled into his sleeping bag, drifting off. As everyone packed their things, Kyoka jumped off Izuku's lap, and he stood up, curious about the unusual bell sound. Kyoka explained that she couldn't be his tour guide because she had promised to help Mina with her homework. She assured him that a good friend would show him around and nuzzled against his cheek, asking if that was okay. Izuku agreed, kissing her cheek, which made her blush. She playfully reminded him that they needed to be discreet, as others could see them. Kyoka promised that once the tour was over, they could spend time together in her dorm room. She held his cheeks, and they shared a quick kiss before she picked up her backpack and took his hand. Together, they approached Momo, who was packing her things. Kyoka startled her, apologizing for the surprise. Momo, catching her breath, confirmed she would be showing Izuku around. Kyoka then asked to speak with Momo privately for a moment. While they talked, Mina approached Izuku, excited to meet the Doomslayer. She asked about his name, curious if it was because it sounded cool. Izuku acknowledged that was part of it. Mina then inquired about his quirk, flexing her arms in a playful manner. Izuku hesitated before revealing that he was quirkless. Mina, surprised, apologized for asking, and Izuku reassured her that it was fine. She was just curious. "I doesn't feel like you're okay with it," she thought as she looked down, feeling guilty for asking him that question. Izuku got up and walked over to her, lifting her chin to make her face him. He reassured her with a warm smile, and Mina stared at him, blushing at the brightness of his expression. He told her it was okay to be curious but reminded her to consider how someone might feel about such questions before asking. After letting her chin go, he asked if she understood, to which she nodded, still blushing as she gazed at him. Izuku patted her head gently before sitting back down, waiting for Kyoka and Momo to finish their conversation. Unbeknownst to him, all the girls, including Kyoka and Momo, had seen his smile and were blushing as well. Izuku looked down at the floor, his smile slowly fading. He thought to himself that it had been a long time since he had smiled like that. Kyoka and Momo shook off their blushes and approached Izuku. Kyoka instructed him to follow Momo, who would show him around. Mina got off the desk and walked next to Kyoka, who waved goodbye to Izuku as he left with Mina. Momo put her backpack on and approached Izuku, asking him to follow her as she would show him around. As they walked, Momo, with a slight blush on her face, began to talk to Izuku about what he would see. Izuku listened attentively while looking around the bustling hall filled with students chatting and enjoying their lunch. Suddenly, a student ran past with a friend and bumped into Momo, causing her to stumble. Before she could fall, Izuku caught her with one arm and grabbed the other student by the collar. The student froze in place, realizing who was holding him. Trembling, he begged Izuku not to hurt him. Izuku glared at him and demanded an apology, reminding him that he had pushed Momo. He helped Momo back to her feet and insisted the student apologize. The student, visibly shaken, bowed apologetically to Momo, who reassured him it was okay. After the student hurried away, Izuku checked on Momo, holding her shoulder gently. She smiled flustered and thanked him for catching her. Izuku replied that he wouldn't want to see a friend of Kyoka's get hurt, offering her a small smile. Momo, feeling warmth from his words, suggested they continue to the cafeteria. After their tour concluded, Momo led Izuku to the dorms, explaining that this was the last place to show him. Izuku noted that Aizawa had mentioned he would be living there. Momo suggested they head inside, and as they walked, Izuku asked if she was scared of him. Momo quickly denied it, but Izuku pointed out her stuttering. She admitted to being nervous and wanting to make a good first impression. Izuku reassured her that she didn't need to impress him, as he could tell she was an amazing person at heart. Momo blushed, feeling awed by his warm smile. As Izuku's smile faded again, Momo felt a twinge of disappointment. She hesitantly asked if he would like to join her for tea, and he agreed with a small smile. Meanwhile, 𝐒𝐿𝐵 sat next to Mina in her room, helping her with homework. She noticed Mina seemed distracted, her thoughts drifting elsewhere. 𝐒𝐿𝐵 tapped her shoulder, asking if she was okay. Mina jumped slightly, confused, and asked 𝐒𝐿𝐵 to promise she wouldn't be mad. 𝐒𝐿𝐵 assured her she wouldn't be. Mina then confessed it was about Izuku, her face growing warm. 𝐒𝐿𝐵 inquired what about him was on her mind. Mina expressed her confusion about how someone who looked so intimidating could also be so cute, laying her head on the table in a flustered mess. She gushed about his adorable smile, and 𝐒𝐿𝐵, smirking, teased her about her feelings for him. Mina protested, insisting she didn't like him, but 𝐒𝐿𝐵's knowing expression made her sigh in defeat. She admitted that she might like him a little bit, leaving 𝐒𝐿𝐵 to ponder how that was possible since they had just met. The whole bad boy but cute on the inside persona was just. She couldn't express why she liked him so much, even though they had just met. Something about Izuku was making her fall for him. 𝐒𝐿𝐵 reflected on her own feelings, recalling how she felt the same way when they first met. He was just so attractive. She found herself daydreaming about seeing him without his shirt. 𝐒𝐿𝐵 mentioned how hot it would be, biting her lips slightly. Mina wished she could see that too, imagining what Izuku would look like shirtless. 𝐒𝐿𝐵 then suggested that she could make that happen, snapping out of her thoughts. Mina was surprised and asked if she really could. 𝐒𝐿𝐵 assured her that they just needed to find a way to get Izuku to like her back. Mina asked how they would do that, and 𝐒𝐿𝐵 promised to figure it out, but for now, they needed to finish their homework. Mina agreed and they continued working. Later, Izuku was in the living room with Momo, both enjoying tea together. Momo asked how he met 𝐒𝐿𝐵, and Izuku explained that he had saved her from a dangerous situation in an alleyway. Momo expressed her relief that 𝐒𝐿𝐵 had found someone like him, and Izuku smiled in response. As they sipped their tea, Momo recalled what 𝐒𝐿𝐵 had told her and felt a blush creeping onto her cheeks. In a flashback, 𝐒𝐿𝐵 had mentioned that she and Izuku were dating, and Momo had teased her about making it clear when she kissed him in front of the class. 𝐒𝐿𝐵 revealed that she wasn't the only girl dating Izuku. She, her mom, and Ryukyu were all involved with him. Momo was surprised to hear that the dragon hero was dating Izuku too. 𝐒𝐿𝐵 explained that they were willing to share him since they knew he might attract more girls. Momo wondered why 𝐒𝐿𝐵 was telling her this, and 𝐒𝐿𝐵 mentioned that she felt some girls might develop feelings for Izuku soon, except for Uraraka, who was dating Bakugo. Momo asked if 𝐒𝐿𝐵 was truly okay with the arrangement, and 𝐒𝐿𝐵 reassured her with a pat on the shoulder before they returned to Izuku, who greeted them with a bright smile that made 𝐒𝐿𝐵 blush. Back in the present, Momo was lost in thought, staring at her tea. Izuku noticed her distraction and gently asked if she was okay. Startled, Momo accidentally spilled her tea on her shirt. She quickly set her cup down, and Izuku asked if she was alright, offering to help her clean up. Momo confirmed she was fine, but her shirt was wet. Izuku suggested she change, and he offered to clean up the spill. Momo hesitated but ultimately decided to go change her clothes. As Izuku cleaned up, he pondered why Momo had jumped earlier and if he had startled her. While he was tidying up, he felt as if someone was watching him. Turning around, he saw Toru, who was surprised he remembered her name. She nervously asked if he could help her reach the cookie jar on the top shelf. Izuku agreed and followed her to the kitchen. As he reached for the jar, his shirt lifted slightly, revealing his abs, which made Toru blush intensely. She thought to herself how impressive they looked. Once Izuku retrieved the jar, he handed it to her, and Toru thanked him, her cheeks still flushed. She opened the jar and was about to eat a cookie when she decided to thank him properly. Holding out a cookie to Izuku, she expressed her gratitude, and he accepted it with a smile. Toru quickly walked away, still blushing, leaving Izuku to enjoy the cookie and wonder about her. After a while, Momo returned with a fresh outfit, apologizing for taking so long. Izuku reassured her it was fine as they resumed watching TV. Momo then asked if she could ask him one more question. When he agreed, she inquired about his last name. Izuku hesitated and preferred not to discuss it, causing Momo to feel awkward. They both sat in silence, each wishing the other would break the tension. Izuku's phone vibrated, and he pulled it out to find a message from his dad. It was a video from Eri, who excitedly greeted him and mentioned how much she looked forward to his return, sharing all the things she wanted to do together. "Bye," she said as the video ended. Izuku had a small smile on his face as Momo watched the video with him. Momo leaned on his shoulder and asked if he had a daughter. Izuku confirmed that he had adopted her. Momo expressed her admiration, saying the girl was adorable. Izuku sent a message to his daughter, telling her she would see him soon. Momo remarked that for someone his age, he seemed to be doing a good job as a father. Izuku, surprised, looked toward her. Momo affirmed her statement, gazing up at him while still leaning on his shoulder. They shared a moment of silence, staring into each other's eyes as if they were the only two people in the room. Realizing how long they had been staring, Momo snapped out of it and suggested they get some rest since it was late. She blushed as she got off his shoulder. Izuku, also blushing, stood up and wished her good night. Momo, playing with her fingers and looking down at the floor, shyly suggested he could call her Momo. Izuku smiled and agreed, leaving her with a warm feeling as he departed. Meanwhile, Kyoka was alone in her room after finishing homework with Mina. She checked her phone and noted it was almost midnight. She stretched and wondered where Izuku was, expressing a longing to cuddle. Just then, she heard a knock on the door. Excitedly, she ran to open it and found Izuku standing there. He greeted her, but she interrupted by jumping into his arms, relieved he had arrived. Izuku lifted her to his eye level, assuring her he would never disappoint her. He stepped into her room and closed the door. Kyoka, holding his cheek, shared a gentle kiss with him, and he reciprocated as she wrapped her legs around him. They shared a tender moment, and Izuku laid her down on the bed, breaking the kiss to softly kiss her neck, causing her to smile and run her fingers through his hair. She playfully asked how he was so good at this, and he humbly replied he was just doing what felt right. Kyoka complimented him, and he kissed her cheek, nuzzling against her neck as she smiled and pet his head. Kyoka remarked on how soft his hair was, and they cuddled together under a blanket. She playfully suggested they sleep without shirts, blushing as she did. Izuku, curious, asked why, and she explained it would feel comfortable hiding her face in his chest. He agreed, surprising her, and they both removed their shirts. Kyoka hugged him tightly, feeling flustered but safe. She admitted that even though they had been close before, seeing him shirtless still made her blush. Izuku reassured her that he didn't feel weird about it and lifted her chin to look into her eyes, telling her she looked appealing. Kyoka smiled, flustered, and kissed him again, thanking him as she nuzzled against him. Izuku wrapped his arm around her waist and settled into a comfortable position. She wished him good night, and he returned the sentiment, kissing her head before they both drifted off to sleep. Meanwhile, Doomguy was busy crafting a little gift for Izuku. Vega questioned whether he was sure about giving it to him, and Doomguy confirmed his decision, though Vega wondered if Izuku would know how to use it. The damage it can cause is rather significant. Doomguy contemplated how to approach the situation. Vega reminded him that time was of the essence, as the demons would arrive in at least a month. Doomguy acknowledged the urgency, assuring Vega that they would be ready. He decided to give Izuku some time to relax before breaking the news about the impending threat. It had been a few weeks since Izuku joined UA. He had made friends in Class 1A and was planning to meet Class 1B, as Kyoka had suggested he should expand his social circle. Currently, he was heading to the support class, pondering who might be able to help him fix his visor. He knocked on the door but received no response, so he knocked again. Still, there was silence, prompting him to open the door. The room was dimly lit, and it appeared empty at first. However, as he turned to leave, he noticed a small light illuminating a desk where someone was sleeping. He approached and saw a girl with pink hair resting her head on the desk. He gently shook her shoulder, trying to wake her. She mumbled for a few more minutes of sleep before suddenly sitting up, startled. Upon seeing Izuku, her eyes widened in surprise, and she jumped back, grabbing a large hammer. She demanded to know who he was while aiming the hammer at him. Izuku quickly reassured her that he meant no harm and took a step closer, attempting to calm her down. In a moment of panic, she threw the hammer, but he caught it effortlessly. She shouted for him to stay away, backing up against the wall. Sighing, Izuku set the hammer down and explained that he only wanted help with his visor. As she regained her composure, she found the light switch and turned it on, revealing a room filled with various inventions. Izuku was taken aback by the size and number of gadgets in the room. Once Mei recognized him, she gasped in excitement, realizing he was the Doom Slayer. He preferred to be called Izuku, and she introduced herself as Mei Hatsum, expressing her admiration for him. She shook his hand enthusiastically, and he was surprised by her energy. After a moment, Izuku explained that he needed help fixing the visor on his helmet. Mei inspected it closely, noting the high-grade material and the crack that obstructed visibility. She assured him that she could fix it and asked how she would contact him once the work was done. Izuku suggested she take off her glove for a moment, and as she did, he wrote his number on the back of her hand. Mei was taken aback by the gesture, feeling a blush creep onto her cheeks as she enjoyed the warmth of his hand. Once he finished, he let go, but she hesitated, still holding onto his hand. After a moment, she snapped out of her daze and released him, promising to call when she was done. As Izuku left, Mei couldn't help but smile, reflecting on the unexpected connection they had just shared. She looked at the helmet again, her mind racing with thoughts about their interaction as she began to work on it. Meanwhile, Doomguy was playing with Eri, who was serving him pretend tea while sitting on a toy chair. An alarm suddenly blared, startling Eri and causing her to spill water on him. He reassured her that it was all right and suggested she go play while he checked on the situation. Doomguy contacted Vega, who informed him that more demons were approaching. A holographic map displayed a red circle around UA, prompting Doomguy to realize that was where Izuku attended school. Vega asked if he should warn Izuku about the demons, and Doomguy agreed, knowing that Izuku preferred to be prepared for any surprises. Meanwhile, Izuku was about to knock on the door of Class 1B's dorm when it swung open, revealing Tetsu. Izuku accidentally knocked on Tetsu's forehead, prompting an apology. Tetsu, recognizing Izuku, was taken aback by his presence. "You are the Doom Slayer," Tetsu exclaimed, his eyes sparkling with excitement. It was an honor to meet Izuku, and he shook his hand enthusiastically. Izuku, feeling a bit bashful, reassured him that he could just call him Izuku. Tetsu, still beaming, asked what brought Izuku to their school. Izuku explained that he came to introduce himself to Class 1B and hoped to make some friends. Tetsu's smile widened as he introduced himself, inviting Izuku to call him Tetsu. As Tetsu moved aside to let Izuku in, he expressed his excitement about the others meeting him. Izuku felt a mix of hope and nervousness as he entered the dorm. Tetsu waved goodbye and headed to the elevator, leaving Izuku to ponder what his new classmates would be like. After a brief wait, the elevator doors opened, and Izuku stepped out. He approached the front door and knocked, waiting for a response. A voice from inside called out that they were coming. As the door opened, Izuku was greeted by a short girl with horns, who looked up at him in surprise. He recognized her from an earlier encounter when he had helped her against a thug. Izuku awkwardly asked if she was okay, noticing her stunned expression. The girl, Pony, was taken aback by his presence and quickly apologized for staring. Izuku reassured her that it was fine and asked if he could come in. She stepped aside, allowing him to enter, and closed the door behind him. As they stood in the living room, Pony asked what he was doing there. Izuku explained that he wanted to make friends, to which Pony eagerly responded that they would love to be his friend. They then noticed another girl with long hair resembling vines, and Pony greeted her. Ibra turned to see Izuku and expressed her curiosity with an unexpected question about his beliefs. Izuku was taken aback but answered that he had indeed faced formidable foes. Ibra expressed her gratitude for having a guardian like him to protect their world. As she spoke, a beam of light seemed to shine down on her, which Izuku soon realized was Pony holding a flashlight above her head. Ibra introduced herself formally, and Izuku suggested she just call him Izuku. He then inquired about the whereabouts of the others, noticing the dorm was rather empty. Pony explained that most had left, while she and Ibra chose to stay behind. Izuku acknowledged this, but Ibra still held onto his hand, causing him to point it out. She quickly apologized, admitting that his hand was comforting. As Izuku checked his phone, he received a concerning message from his father about demons approaching. Realizing the urgency of the situation, he informed the girls that they needed to find safety. Pony was eager to help and rushed off to inform Principal Nizu, while Ibra insisted on assisting him. Some hesitation, Izuku agreed, and they prepared to face the impending threat together. Time passed, and Izuku donned his armor, waiting for the demons to arrive. Ibra, now in her hero outfit, asked about his helmet. He explained that it was still being repaired. Just then, a red portal opened nearby, and imps began to emerge, ready to attack. Izuku warned Ibra that they should show no mercy as he readied his shotgun. Ibra summoned vines from the ground to ensnare the approaching imps, declaring they would send them back to the fiery pits of hell. As she dealt with the imps, Izuku charged in, firing his weapon. One imp leaped at him, but he caught it and slammed it down, swiftly dispatching it. Another attempted to attack from behind, but Ibra intervened, calling out to Izuku as they prepared to fight together against the oncoming horde. "You must pay attention," she said as her vines grew thorns and pierced the imp in its neck. Izuku expressed his gratitude as he continued to defeat more imps. Ibra squeezed her vines against the imp's throat, and its head came off due to the thorns in her vines. She threw the imp's lifeless body towards the other imps, causing a few of them to stumble to the ground. As the imps lay on the floor, she used her vines to pull them from underground. The imps screeched in pain as her thorns dug into their bodies, and she pulled her vines across them, tearing them apart. Only a few imps remained, and Ibra ensnared them with her vines. She slammed them against the ground multiple times while Izuku watched. He thought to himself that the scene was intense as Ibra discarded the dead imps. Ibra, breathing heavily, asked if they had defeated them all. Izuku replied that he thought so and approached her, checking if she was all right. She confirmed that she was fine, just a bit fatigued. Izuku then looked toward the red portal that was still open, feeling a sense of unease. Ibra noticed his concern and asked what was wrong. He explained that the portal should have closed by now, suggesting that someone else was coming. As something emerged from the portal, it caught their attention. Izuku recognized it as a Hell Knight and warned Ibra to be cautious. She understood and prepared herself as the Hell Knight charged at them. Izuku ran towards the Hell Knight, and Ibra used her vines to grab its foot, causing it to fall to its knee. Seizing the opportunity, Izuku positioned himself in front of it and struck its face, forcing it back. Standing on the Hell Knight, he pulled his blade from his gauntlet, ready to strike, but the Hell Knight swatted his arm away and seized him by the neck. Ibra quickly wrapped her vines around the Hell Knight's arm, growing thorns that pierced its skin. The Hell Knight roared in pain, throwing Izuku aside and tearing the vines from its arm. Ibra continued to wrap her thorned vines around the Hell Knight, trying to slow it down for Izuku to finish it off. However, fatigue from battling the imps hindered her strength, and the Hell Knight broke free, charging at her. Ibra, too tired to react, was knocked aside by the Hell Knight. She fell to the ground, struggling to rise as the Hell Knight pinned her down with its foot. It lifted its foot, preparing to stomp on her, but Izuku intervened, pushing the Hell Knight off her and firing at it. The Hell Knight shielded its face with its arm and knocked the gun from Izuku's hand. It tackled him, forcing him to slide back under its weight. Izuku managed to stop himself and elbowed the Hell Knight in the head, causing it to release him. He kicked the Hell Knight away, worried about Ibra's condition as he glanced at her on the ground. Determined, he thought that he would make the Hell Knight pay for its actions. The Hell Knight roared and charged at him, prompting Izuku to draw his blade and run at it. The Hell Knight tackled him once more, slamming him onto the floor and preparing to strike down with its fists. Izuku rolled aside just in time, and the Hell Knight's fists crashed into the ground. Quickly getting up, Izuku kicked the Hell Knight in the head, stunning it momentarily. He jumped onto its back and stabbed his blade into it, eliciting another roar of pain as the Hell Knight struggled to throw him off. Izuku pushed the blade deeper into its back, but the Hell Knight managed to grab his leg, pulling him off and slamming him against the floor. Holding Izuku at eye level, he stared defiantly and spat BLD at the Hell Knight's face. The creature roared in fury, preparing to slam him down again, but suddenly felt a shotgun blast hit its back. It dropped Izuku and turned to see Mei, wearing Izuku's helmet and holding his shotgun. She exclaimed about the power of the weapon and how comfortable the helmet was, even as the Hell Knight roared at her. With a playful tone, she acknowledged the danger she was in. Izuku, seeing this, felt a surge of anger and determination. He would not allow anyone to be harmed again. As the Hell Knight charged at Mei, Izuku tackled it to the ground, landing on top of it. He stood on its chest and began to stomp down on its head. The Hell Knight attempted to fight back, raising its arm to catch Izuku's leg, but Izuku jumped and stomped down on its arm, breaking it. The Hell Knight roared in agony as its broken arm fell to the floor. Izuku then targeted the other arm, breaking it as well to ensure the Hell Knight could no longer resist. He declared that he would make its demise slow and began to unleash a relentless assault on the creature. Meanwhile, Mei noticed Ibra on the ground, struggling to get up. She rushed over and set the shotgun down, checking on her. Ibra looked up, recognizing Mei in the helmet and mistaking her for Izuku. Mei clarified that she was not Izuku, who was occupied with the Hell Knight. Ibra understood and accepted Mei's help to stand. Mei introduced herself, and Ibra thanked her for the assistance. As they both turned to watch Izuku, who seemed to be finishing the Hell Knight, he stopped and looked at the defeated creature, its head caved in and clearly unable to rise again. He noticed the two girls approaching and jumped off the Hell Knight, delivering one last kick to its head. He asked if they were all right as the portal closed behind them. Mei confirmed her safety but inquired about Izuku, who had been thrown around. He reassured her that he was fine, having endured worse, as he took back his shotgun. Turning to Ibra, he asked if she was okay, gently holding her cheek to check on her. She stammered that she was fine, a blush creeping onto her cheeks. Izuku pressed for confirmation, and she insisted she was all right. He expressed his concern about ensuring no one got hurt on his watch, while Mei observed the interaction. Curiously, she asked if they were dating, causing Ibra's blush to deepen as she quickly denied it. "We are just friends of our Lord and Savior," she said as she let his hand go. Izuku hummed as he moved over to Mei. He asked if he could have his helmet back. Mei responded cheerfully, taking it off and placing it on Izuku's head. She remarked on how comfy it was, and Izuku thanked her for fixing the visors. Mei smiled brightly, expressing her joy in being able to repair the helmet. She offered her help for any future repairs, and Izuku appreciated her offer as he glanced toward the demons. He mentioned the need to dispose of the demon bodies and walked over to a fallen Hell Knight, lifting it up. He asked Mei if she could assist him in gathering the bodies. Mei agreed and ran to a dead,